Okay, so in my last video on this person did just so well, but today we're going to be doing a reaction to the same person who did a while back. It's a libertarian person. Now they're reacting to a video by Vosh, reacting to them. Their video, I've taken a little look at it. It's not very well edited in the sense of the reaction part of it. Like, otherwise it's fine, but it's just the reaction part of it where it's sort of like it's sort of mixing their stuff, and it's just a little bit weird. Anyway, let's get into it. To preface this, by the way, if you're a Vosh fan, I'm not necessarily someone who always agrees with Vosh, and if you're not a Vosh fan as well, that's another thing. So I'm somebody who is in the middle section here. I disagree with both of you.
Hey, Internet. So a fun thing happened recently. I got my very first debunk response from a major RedTuber, in this case, Boosh. He responded to my take on
Okay.
positive liberty, and what he had to say was, well, unfortunately, kind of disappointing. It was mostly just the usual rhetorical spin job and sophistry you would expect. In fact, the video you're watching right now almost didn't get made because I figured a clear long post response was all it really needed, but I decided to throw
Wait, so what was that? Twitter.
sophistry you would expect. In fact, the video you're watching right now almost didn't get made because I figured a clear long post response was all it really needed.
The way accents work at times, it can sound like you're saying something
But I
different.
decided to throw a Discord poll up. It turns out most people were curious what I had to say beyond that.
I wonder why Discord would support you there.
And plus, I come up with a few extra things to say beyond that post. So here we go. But to keep things interesting, I'm going to try and make this more than just about the Boosh response or about me, but more or less make this a fun study and how to dissect the kind of dishonest rhetoric that Boosh likes to push. And yeah, I'm also pretty much doing this unscripted.
I don't think this is a great idea because at times if someone makes a, they refute your arguments, but also they back it up a little bit. I've done this in the past. It's not great to respond to that by going, well, look, you could deconstruct their argument. No, they're wrong. Well, they're not necessarily wrong. Just because you're like, well, they're wrong about this, that doesn't mean their entire point wrong. But yeah, still, fair enough. But anyway, yeah, just one point there, just a bit of an issue. Anyway, back to said video.
Which means quite a bit of rambling, which means it's probably going to be a long one, which, I mean, of course, if you're already here, you probably already know, so I can't length the video, but I'll try to keep it below an hour. Now, before I get into it, though, I just want to give a brief summary for people who aren't familiar with all three videos that are involved here. Because, yeah, another reason this video almost didn't get made is because I'm kind of committing a cardinal
The freedom to die. Vosh debates freedom.
YouTube sin here of responding to a response to another response to
So,
another reason this video almost didn't get made is because I'm kind of committing
at least I'm free.
a cardinal
Is this true freedom?
YouTube sin here of responding to a response another response video, which is another response to a response and back and forth. And that can make things really confusing for people who are not completely clued into what the conversation is. So I'll start with a quick rundown. The topic we're discussing is about positive and negative freedom. Negative liberty is the freedom from coercive barriers and constraints. For example,
so negative freedom is freedom from coercive barriers.
Preventing you from, say, opening a business without paying them a $100,000 fee or something first would be an example of trampling on negative liberty. While positive liberty, on the other hand, is more like entitlements or the freedom of access to do and get what you want to have. For example, welfare entitlements would be an example of positive liberty, and a society that doesn't have those entitlements would be an example of trampling on positive liberty, at least in theory. Now, the main contention in the debate is that libertarian socialists generally believe that they want a society which focuses more on positive liberty, while those of us who are libertarian right will generally want a society that focuses on negative liberty.
Wait, focuses on? Sorry, so focus.
Kind of the main ideological differences between what people generally call lib left and lib right is which freedom we consider to be more important. In my view, I gave reasons for why I believe negative liberty is more important, and
I'm not sure if they
gave reasons for why you believe positive liberty is what society should focus on. My main argument is that positive liberty is really just the benefits of wealth, and that libertarian socialists are confusing the benefits of wealth for wealth generation itself, and that in order to have that wealth, you need to create it through negative liberty. Like, for instance, another example I came up with would be an apple. Let's say that you want to eat an apple. You want the positive liberty of eating an apple. You want to enjoy that apple. However, let's say you live in a world where there are no apples yet, but you do have.
Okay. And how do you know the taste of an apple?
Apple seeds.
So there are no apples. So have all apples gone, or have apples never existed? Because, if apples never existed, I would advise maybe allocating your resources elsewhere. The likelihood of your apple actually being as nice as you think it will be is very unlikely. Like, why do you just assume the apple will be nice? Also, by the way, when you just bring in the idea of nostalgia, yes, likely it is the thing you cannot have. You can have, but it's out of your reach. Is probably going to seem to be better than it actually will be. And that's not to say, by the way, that you won't think it's good. It's just that, it's not as good as maybe alternative stuff.
So you would need a negative liberty of being able to plant your apple tree and care for your apple tree and grow it without someone aggressing on you or coercing you or coming to destroy your apple tree. So
well, actually, they're actually less likely to come and destroy your apple tree. What's more likely is that they're going to say, nice apple tree. Thanks. Good apple tree now. I'm going to have some apples. Some apple pie. Lovely apple pie. There we go. Problem solved there for that person. That person now is able to have apples. And that's a problem there. Why wouldn't you just approach somebody else who has the same issue as you do? Clearly if somebody is coming to infringe on your apple tree, they clearly either dislike apples or like apples, or dislike apples or dislike the fact that you have apples. So clearly there's people who are interested in the apple thing. Or maybe they're just in general, they're just destroying your things in general, which I don't really see how you can stop that, because that's just, they're clearly motivated enough. But yeah, don't really see how you can stop them from destroying your apple tree. You can just punish them for it, which,
Wait, it's freedom from having your property rights being infringed, which would then
yeah, but you can always infringe on property rights. And also the fact is, right, what you mean by property rights, because where do property rights start and finish? I can technically speaking build a house, but then if I go into, if I could have somebody technically speaking say, oh, they're insane, they aren't in the right mind, the house then is under their control. They can now sell that house off, and suddenly I have no more house. They then take the money, and suddenly now that house is in somebody else's hands. Is that not mine? I never made the decision to sell that house. Where did that house go off to? Now somebody else owns that house. Maybe they were a friend of that person that got it for a nice good deal, and that person is now subcharging somebody for the use of the house in the form of rent. Now all those things are technically unethical, and they infringe on my property rights, but not technically speaking, because legally speaking they are perfectly allowed to do that. But also, what if we change the law to make that illegal? Suddenly now they're not allowed to do that, So it's kind of a bit of complex thing there. If you remove certain systems to always give the inalienability on the person's property rights, that would potentially give an improvement. If you said a builder is the only person who's allowed to own the house, that's a thing that you could do. If you say the builder is allowed to sell it, well, what happens if the builder is somewhat coerced, but it's a bit of a grey area? If it's on one side, you always go, well, it's, no, oh no. If there's a grey area, it's the builders. Okay, that's a relatively good policy, but that is not the same. Then you can't have a wealthy person who owns a house because the house has been changed in multiple hands. Most houses have, had, not most houses, but good houses have had a dubious history. Some of them are not lived in because of that dubious history, and they're, wrapped up in legal battles. Anyway, just,
Then lead to the creation of the apple, aka the wealth, which would then give you the positive liberty of
But the main question is, why not just take someone else's apple?
being able to eat your apple. Bush's argument, on the other hand, is equating it to a man in the desert. A man is thrown into a lawless desert. Is he free? And Bush points out that he's really only free to die. And so while he has infinite amounts of negative liberty, he doesn't have any real positive freedom, thus resulting in him being only free to die. And that's the basic gist of the libertarian socialist argument in favor of caring about positive liberty more. And that's the basic gist of the subject. Hopefully that makes it easier.
That's not a very good thing there. One example is not the gist, That's really not a fair thing to say.
People who are not already plugged in to understand, so I will now jump into the Bush video and go over his response to me, which a lot of this is just going to be a more in-depth version of the Twitter/Xbox I made. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to go over the entire Bush video because honestly, some of it is just fluff that doesn't really have any meaning. And plus, there's a few things that me and Bush actually agree on. So we agree on the definition of positive and negative freedom, so there's no real point in me responding to him on things we agree on.
Yeah, as I've said in the past, Fosh, by the way, is the naming thing intentional, or is it like the gaming footage? Is it like just to make people clear that you're a fascist? Or I'm kind of joking there. I don't actually think that you're necessarily a fascist. I haven't seen all of your videos, or met you. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I have said in the past, Fosh is a little bit of an idiot. So I'm not sure if you agreeing is necessarily a good example if you're saying, oh, it's fine and this is how you critique stuff. Because it's not really valid. You can both be wrong about something, but both agree. The same as you could both be wrong and say each other is wrong. Have two different things you're saying, but you can still both be wrong. Thing which, by the way, I've made mistakes in the past, and then people in the comments have said, oh, no, it's this thing. You're going, well, no, it's just not. I was wrong, yes, but, that doesn't mean you're right because you are saying something different. It's just a key thing there. Anyway, that's a bit of a sidetrack.
Which is a waste of time for obvious reasons. What does that mean?
This video is 53 minutes long, and my God, they talk slowly.
Does he mean it's wrong?
Sorry.
It's a waste of time for obvious reasons. What does that
Why did they cut into him speaking? Jesus Christ, just give the full sentence, please.
mean? What does that mean? By grift, does he mean it's wrong, or does he literally mean the concept of positive liberty, this long-standing philosophical concept, was created disingenuously to make money? It's just like a buzzword. Yes, what is a grift? That's a good question, because Vosh kind of makes this complaint throughout the video. So by grift, I basically mean a scam. The definition of a grifter is
To be fair, I think, as somebody who makes reaction content, it's not like the person is there to respond to you. So a criticism doesn't get resolved. If there's a bit of like, what are you trying to say here? To be fair, if someone keeps saying it, you can't go, well, yeah, I'm not there to respond. Okay, yeah, but also, you aren't there to respond, so they can keep saying it arguably. Anyway.
Basically someone who is engaging in scams or swindling or taking advantage of people. Now, when I call an argument a scam or call it grift, what I'm basically saying is that it's an argument that tricks people into believing or accepting something that is the opposite of what they would accept if they actually understood the argument. And the reason I call positive liberty out as being a grift is because it tricks people into confusing, again, the benefits of wealth for wealth creation itself. If they understood that, if people realized and fully comprehended the economics behind it and understood that you need negative freedom to get positive freedom, then people who
you need not really, no.
Accept and buy into the libertarian socialist positive freedom grift would realize that it is in fact nonsensical.
Yeah, but once again, it's very similar to like a binary. It's like, interestingly, people go, oh, it's not a binary. Well, technically speaking, something can still be a binary, but, in like real number terms, for example. I can go, oh, it's between 0 and 1, but the thing is, between 0 and 1, with real numbers, is, at least as my maths knowledge is far, is like infinity. Because you can go 0.0103543543554789545556743555567555555535, for infinity onwards. Just by putting that point there, you can put any number you want after that. And that's technically within your binary of 0 to 1. So, But I'm just saying, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're necessarily, if you're saying that you need negative liberty to gain positive liberty, you would need to, then you could argue, then just have both. If one is dependent on the other, then you can have both.
So if you actually want the benefits of freedom, you would want to focus on negative liberty. In other words,
but if you're saying you can't go, oh, well, you need this thing to get this thing, okay, so have both things,
you really want a society that has,
and then you're arguing, no, but let's only do that. No, but what sense does that make? If separate thing, I'm not saying if positive liberty, negative liberty. I'm just saying it's going to be saying you can have those apple seeds, but you can't have your apple. Okay, why not? You can't continue onwards. Even if you say categorically positive liberty is requiring negative liberty, okay, but why then just only have negative liberty?
There's a lot of positive freedom. You have to get a negative freedom. This idea that you have positive without the
which is better, using child slaves or waiting for those children to be educated and grow up, and then, they're stronger and are now capable of carrying more coal, and now maybe will last longer, will live longer, because now they won't have been ingesting coal dust, and as well as that, because you can educate some of those children, you can educate them to build, greener and cleaner methods of generating energy, and all these things that can occur, which means that actually getting all the children to mine coal is actually worse in the long scheme of things than just training the children up, economically speaking. You know. Anyway, the point is just maybe go beyond this sort of thing of, oh, this thing is dependent on this thing, so we should just do the first thing. Why?
Negative.
Why
Reading
would you do
focusing more
that?
on positive freedom over negative freedom is basically a grift. It's a scam that works on people who don't want to actually do any work and don't understand that you need to do work in order for society to have wealth. You need to
No, you don't. If I don't work, then society just doesn't really change much. I just die. Maybe if you say that under positive liberty, maybe, but under just the general societal terms, I just die. You know? Under the current society, if I do no work, I just die. You know? If nobody helps me, or even people do help me, you know, I just die. Because even under the current system, you know, even under social system, you'd still need to do work. You know, that makes very little sense. Like, yeah, you just die. So no, you don't need to work for society to have wealth. People need to work for society to have wealth, but individually, no.
the freedom to plant and take care
You need to expand the you to people.
of the apple tree in order for the apple to exist.
Yeah, but if somebody else is also thinking about having an apple, and they actually do the work, then apples exist. And you can get one of them. Because the person has planted them. You know?
And people come around and say, oh, you can have the apple without that because magic is a grift.
No, but somebody else can plant the apples. You know? By the way, one side thing. You realize if we run the system, we just abolish the media. Like not like the news media, but the media, the entertainment media. Like this arguably React content could be considered, you know, philosophical discussion and all of that, and could possibly be somewhat related to the news, and then science-based media maybe, but that would be more just the news, just in a different fashion. Basically, entertainment media would be just wiped out because we don't need entertainment media. Now, obviously, from an economical point of view, no, it makes perfect sense to have the entertainment media because from a business point of view, yes, people are depressed. They need something to comfort them, even if they're not depressed. Just relax, just have a nice brain, like a little drug, you know? It's like the drug trade. The drug trade doesn't collapse, but it should do unless it's actually giving you work efficiencies or sleep efficiencies or anything like that. But if it's just giving you, you know, a mood increase, that's not necessarily a good thing. But of course, it is a good thing for you personally. It's a good thing that makes you feel good, you know. And ultimately, I think that's sort of a problem with people who view the economy, which is like, yeah, sure, from a business point of view, yeah, you want to have the entertainment, you want to have as much money made as possible. But from an actual real point of view, no. Because the more money the entertainment industry is making, the more money people are making from entertainment, they're not actually providing value. They're wasting people's time. If I'm here making a video where it's entertainment, and you're going ahead and watching that video, you're not working. And I'm not working, really. You may say I'm working, but the only reason why you say I'm working is because I'm doing something. That's technically working. But am I doing a job? Because, by the way, key thing, business term, working is separate from a job. Those are two separate things. Am I doing a job? That's also technicality. I'm technically doing a job. That's even more technicality. I'm technically doing a job, but only because I'm getting paid for it. You know. So work is a very complex thing because I can do some work and not get paid for it. And I mean not as in like someone doesn't pay me, refuses to pay me, or you know, it's work where I do something on the expectation that I'll be paid, maybe possibly like maybe I come up with an innovation, but nobody really wants to buy it, so it doesn't really work. I don't mean that. I mean literally, I have no even concept that I would get paid for it, but that's still work. You know, people do work all the time for free. And the key thing is, entertainment work is a distraction from actual work. If I'm working on entertainment, I'm not working on things that actually provide value. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that I would critique about someone's view and work, you know?
It's a scam. It's not actually real. Mankind did not come into this world with all of these modern technology and benefits where you get from it right from the get-go. No, we had to create all that through negative freedom. It's basically just
Not really, though. Like a good chunk of technologies have been made via state aid. Sometimes that's, you know, the likes of a monarch, where the person in charge will go, I want this thing, I want this technology, and then scientists have to go off and make this technology. Other times it's trying to impress someone who's a monarch, and other times it's just right up the actual state, and they actually fund something that could progress the society.
what an argument is. But anyways, hopefully that clears up for what I would consider to be a grift and how I use the word grift. Anyway, next clip.
And that's probably
We're really inundated with like the iconography that libertarians, aka high school boys, really care for, huh? With like the anime and the video games and such. Like, there's a lot going on.
So this is just some silly poisoning the well that Voosh sometimes likes to do. And in this case, it's really weird because Voosh does the same thing.
the Voosh is I'm pretty sure it's Vosh, but maybe I mean maybe it's intentional. But anyway, okay, what is this?
He's got anime figurines in his background, and he regularly plays video games
Yeah, no, I think it's the gaming is the thing.
on his stream. And I know that Voosh is smart enough to have the self-introspection to understand that he's criticizing me for something that he himself does.
Yeah, no, but it's the gaming thing while like an organized video where you're playing games. It just feels like the whole thing of, oh, we can't just make it audio. Like I have just gone, oh no. See this? This is audio because this is just audio. What this is here is just the waveform, right? That's on the screen is a relatively new thing for this channel. I in general just had audio. I just have audio here. There's no video here, and there's video in reactive videos because you react to the video. But in general, there is very little need for video, except of course the fact that there's engagement, and people know that it gets more engagement if there's video on the screen. But if you want to, if there's ever a video of mine that's it's not a reaction video and and it's just general video, it's probably okay just to look to click on a different tab. Although who knows, YouTube is probably one of those platforms that's like, no, we know that you were on a different tab, so we're going to decrease the amount of impressions we're going to give.
He's basically just doing this for optics. It's pretty dumb, and it's one of the problems with this sort of live streamer bro reaction content. It's really easy to use the debate wants to. Without some external authority coming along and locking up in jail and because Red is not being paid towards red regulation number CUK.
Sorry.
90A17 on page 200465A of the code through you. Basically, you make his red have one that external orders something basically nobody's. In practice,
What he's saying is that you can't put cyanide in the bread.
okay, so this right here can almost completely
Now, interestingly, this is actually an interesting concept. It's actually not cyanide, but it's arsenic. Back in Victorian times, bakers used to just sort of go, okay, flour is expensive. What's cheaper? That looks like flour, that works, that we can bake into the bread. Arsenic. So they put arsenic in the bread. I wonder, this is a real fact, by the way. Victorian England does not seem to me like a particularly, socialist libertarian state, So keep that in mind. That's the thing that happened.
Credit Bush's entire response to me because it shows that he doesn't really understand libertarian right ethics, which is weird because he's had plenty of opportunities to understand this. Libertarian right ethics are mainly surrounding what you see in the Austrian School of Economics, and it's basically all around property rights. You have the freedom to do things without external coercion, so long as you're not infringing on other people's rights. Very key word there, not infringing on other people's rights. If you bake bread and put poison in it or cyanide or whatever, and then you just give it out to people without letting them know what you did, basically murdering people, that is a
technically speaking, once again, murdering people. When you say things like you are murdering people, you are coming into a technicality of law, because it then becomes law instead of things like you could have one country that says the murder is intentional killing someone, but of course in most societies, murder is intentionally killing someone. But also on top of that, being disregarding safety. So for an example, someone is driving a car and they deliberately put a blindfold on and they drive the car fast and they kill someone. They are technically guilty of murdering that person, I would argue, because they didn't need to put the blindfold on. They weren't tricked or in a group or peer pressure. They intentionally put the blindfold on and intentionally sped when they should have known the risks that would bring, So it's knowing the risks of your actions, but doing the thing anyway that leads to somebody's death. At that point it crosses from manslaughter to murder. But I would argue potentially the Victorian England scenario could potentially be manslaughter, because if they're not aware that they're killing someone, then they're not really aware of the risks, and they're not ignoring the risks. They're not So argument can be made. Also, by the way, they were not really punished for that, so
violation of their property rights because you violated their right to their own body by murdering them.
Yeah, but the point is that may be all well and good, but how do you determine that? How do you determine that being murder?
This is really
someone is very poor. If I go to the local very discount shop and they just straight up put poison in the food, it's like well, better come back next time because the antidote is in the next batch. Then, yeah, that's going to be murder if they do it intentionally. But if I live in a society that is like, nope, you didn't pay your subscription to Police Plus, so you don't get the protection when you died. Didn't matter. They paid for Police Plus. You didn't. So prioritized. If they hadn't paid, we would have probably done something about it. But they did pay some.
Really, really basic libertarian ethics. This is why we believe in things like the NAP or covenant communities with additional rules for people who are living nearby you, because we understand that negative freedom pushed to its super clown car mode basically becomes a murder ball. You understand this?
Yeah.
Thought about this.
Yeah, but that's sort of the point, though, is that you do need to address that.
We have rules that against it, and it's talked about extensively in the works of Mises and Hoppe. Now, technically, though, to Bush's credit, he did not say put cyanide in the bread and then give it to someone. He just said put cyanide in the bread and then loosely applied giving it to someone. So maybe Bush does understand this, in which case this is actually even worse, because that means that he knows he's misrepresenting the argument and he's just intentionally grifting his audience by trying to loosely imply that we believe something that we don't actually believe, and he knows.
But it's more so that if it's like, well, but the argument can be made that one is arguing, saying, well, you could only defend that by saying that morally you believe that this is okay. If you don't think that, then you're basically saying, I'm on your side, but also no, I'm not, because I'm against that. But why are you against that?
So we don't actually, which again is worse, because that means he's being disingenuous.
A better comparison for positive freedom would be that you want to be a baker because local business has monopolized all the trade deals that you can get with raw resource manufacturers. You can't open a bakery shop unless you franchise underneath an existing corporation, and they have rules that prevent you from making whatever you want to, which is like a real thing that happens. That would be the more direct comparison. Would be you may technically have the freedom to open a bakery, but systemically there are forces in place that prevent you from accessing the resources.
Nope, we've never given an argument against that at all. Please pay no attention to this video that I am throwing up on the screen right here.
You've made no argument against that, as in that doesn't exist, or that you don't agree. As in you do agree. As in you don't agree that that's positive liberty, but you agree that would be incorporated into your system. That you would actually allow people to open a bakery, and you would remove people's restrictions on doing that. The thing is, right?
It does not exist. Please ignore it. I never made it. We have never once ever come up with an argument against this. Okay, in all seriousness, it's basically the same monopolies argument that I went over as the very first thing that I tackled with Bush and his Coconut Island. The problem with it is that the type of libertarian socialist that Bosch is, their basic praxis is to create a government that has a monopoly on all these regulations. And that is historically much more likely to cause these problems than private organizations.
Technically, no. If you look at the likes of the USSR, which fell into basic corruption, the problem with that is that that's sure you can say the government does it, but realistically, that's not really the government. What it is a bunch of business people going, all of these things are centralized, like a monopoly. what if we were to take over the government and to basically run it like a business, but it's still technically the government? And then eventually, when the whole thing gets disbanded, we can just give everything to our friends. And that's how you get Russian oligarchs. Funnily enough, Russia has a very interesting way of having oligarchs. It just makes them. Just like, boom, there we go. Mine. That's a thing. Anyway, the point is that's an example of not really. I wonder where you get your example that leads to more problems. Because the issue is that there aren't too many instances where governments have a monopoly on everything. They have a monopoly on some things, but in those cases, well, do they? Comparable prices are difficult. If I'm a small nation, I will not have as cheap prices as your nation. Your nation can enter my nation. Your nation's company can enter my nation and go, oh, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do predatory pricing. I'm going to sell below cost, which will make it appear as if, oh, look, the government, their prices are higher, they're inefficient, all these things. They're creating more problems. Well, no, because that corporation is selling below their cost with the intention of pushing out the government, getting sales up, and then eventually increasing prices. Possibly blaming it on inflation, and then suddenly now the prices are back up at the government level. But the government is gone now. The government has exited the market. So it's very hard to argue this, and it's very complex. And sometimes there is no perfect way of calculating it, because different markets have different strengths. Different sizes of corporation have different economies of scale, and how much it costs you really depends. Why does it cost you that much? I've argued before the issues of saying we'll donate our profits to charity, or all these things where it's like, okay, if I'm a corporation, I can technically speaking make $1 billion in revenue, and then only costs us $100 million in sales, in production, and all the pay for ordinary employees who actually do the work and lighting and heating and all these things. And they go, okay, I'm going to pay myself $900 million, and suddenly the corporation has no profit. Now maybe I transfer that over to a different company, that I also own. All these things, there are different ways of technically you pay yourself, but you don't officially pay yourself, because obviously then you have to pay income tax on that. Although arguments, but the point is, in that scenario, that person has now technically made that corporation not profitable. That corporation didn't make a profit. But they actually did. They made $900 million profit. But they just didn't officially do that. So on the books, $900 million went away. Maybe it went away to all these different companies that just, all these things have happened. There's all these ways of making it look like an ordinary thing, that ordinary costs, but in the end, And that's a problem. That's the thing that can defraud investors. That's the thing that can do that. And it is potentially fraud, but also potentially not, depending on the way you do it. The problems of this are massive, and you can't just say, you can't just make a statement like, the governments would do worse job.
This is to create a government that has a monopoly on all these regulations, and that is historically much more likely to cause these problems than private organizations engaging in voluntary free trade. So to some degree,
that's just a statement which you haven't proven.
yes, he is correct that if some large entity ends up controlling all the resources, then this would create a problem with negative liberty. The problem, of course, is that society that focuses more on positive liberty is more likely to have this problem in the first place. Anyway, next clip. Assuming he doesn't love his friends on some consumer. Now, the social argument.
Nothing but the greatest respect imaginable for people struggling with social work. A huge part of libertarianism is just contempt for the poor. So
yeah, I just hate the poor. That's why I want a society that focuses more on creating wealth, because I don't like the poor. Okay, in all seriousness, the easiest way to understand why this is a ridiculous argument is to understand that the average person living today is significantly more wealthy than the top 1% richest people living 150 years ago. And so,
sorry, in what way? So okay, so we take an average. We can't use the ordinary average of having all the wealth and then dividing by the people, because that's not obviously true average. So we take the more average of lining out people based on their wealth and pick the middle point. Now, of course, we have to pick. Is this in America or worldwide?
the ridiculous argument is to understand that the average person living today is significantly more.
So the average person living today. Okay, so we have to get we also have to, of course, upscale the amount of money because of inflation, and also different economies have different actual values of their individual money, and then we realize that is not true. Maybe if you include like corporations that sapped all the wealth from countries like the likes of when you like if you include all the countries of South America, Africa, Asia, and parts of Europe, Central America, pretty much most of the world, if you 150 years ago is possibly But then you also, now of course you have to get the population as well. So yeah, I'm not so sure about that now. That seems to me is
more wealthy than the top 1% richest people living 150 years ago. And so if you were to go back in time and make this exact same argument Bush is making 150 years ago, you would technically be saying, okay, let's have more equality, regardless of whether or not that's going to create more wealth, which would ultimately result in people having significantly less wealth 150 years later, aka today. So
no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work as a concept. First of all, I'm not saying I disagree, because there is complexities around the fact that if you go to 150 years ago, that's like around the time that full scale sacking of countries has occurred. So the average person could be wealthy, but I'm not so sure about that though. Yeah, I mean the whole issue around that though is that even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, it doesn't really work though, because let's say wealth increases by 10%. Or 20%, or even 100%, or even 1,000%. So wealth increases by 1,000%. for the average person. Okay, so we get equality. So equality now would mean everyone is at the same level, which the 1%, being the 1%, would mean a substantial difference. So you would need to have insane levels of wealth, wealth gain between 100 years ago and now for it to be better than making the world equal 150 years ago. That doesn't work.
So imagine a society where we're more equal, but we're still at the same level of development as the 1920s. At absolutely
But that's not the same development. You wouldn't be at the same development.
best. Not exactly a great trade when you realize
But that you wouldn't be at the same development though, because
that. Because that is what focusing on the benefits of wealth over the creation of wealth gets you. And that's kind of the sad thing about
no, because there are many ways to create wealth, and one of the main ones is simply to just take it from others legally, of course. Not legally tends to become pointless because you can just take it from others legally. And the best way to do this, of course, is just employ someone. So if you're someone who's, let's say, got a few $billion hanging about, you just say, okay, you smart people, make me this. And as well, you also add in a bunch of advertising people in and a bunch of cult personality people in to make it, seem a little bit better than it is. And boom, you put your companies on the stock market and watch your shares fly. You've just become a mega billionaire. Out of what? Paying other people to do things they would have done anyway? You've created wealth, but just owning what other people would have done, Not really the best sort of argument in there.
socialism in general. A lot of it is just coming from a standpoint of envy. They're totally okay with us being poor as long as we're more equal, which is proven.
Are you a rich person? How wealthy are you? If you are responding to this ever, just answer the question. Because I feel like...
By the way, they've asked socialists if they'd be okay with more equality if it meant less wealth overall. And they actually want that, which is far more contempt for the poor. Anyway.
No, do you understand something? Okay. Imagine, if we have an equal society. Now, ask yourself this question. How much is the average person worth if we take up all the debt they have, and we also take up all the people who are in countries like the likes of countries that are like Ethiopia and so that, where they are significantly in a position of poverty, where it's like insanely more sort of problem, it's like insane the amount of issues there are there. And you take that and you apply that and you go, oh, okay, so there's wealth parity there. There's wealth parity in those countries itself. There are fairly rich people, but if you look at all the rich people and you break it down, you'd have, and this is like the average person would be worth like tens of times, if not hundreds of times more than they're worth now. And by average, that does depend on where you are. Depending on the average you're actually calculating, because it's very difficult to calculate an average when it comes to world wealth, because you have to obviously kick the billionaires off, because they're going to destabilize the entire average. So which average do you use? Do you use average where you have everyone's wealth aligned along the way, and then you cut in the middle, or do you use a different kind of average system? There's 30 mean mode, median. Yeah. But the key thing is, what do you think that's going to do? Are you actually arguing that socialists will be willing to remove wealth by, let's say, 100 times? Because that's how much your wealth will grow under a true socialist society, under a true equal society. 100 times. Not for everyone, obviously, but for the poorest people. Not correction, not even for the poorest people, just for your relatively poor person. Like,
Anyways, next clip.
Right off the bat, one of the easiest ways that you can describe this video is that it's not possible to refute negative freedom versus positive freedom because it's a philosophical juxtaposition in which if you accept the logic of one side, you accept the logic of the other. It's a framework for analysis. It's not like a mathematical equation or like a research outcome. You can't debunk positive liberty while preserving the framework that allows you to understand negative. That's not a thing, So it's people who don't know what they're talking about will often do this and often overstate the extent to which they can criticize academic concepts or philosophical concepts. They'll talk about you see this a lot of people saying that they can debunk socialism. No, you can't. You can't debunk capitalism either. That's not how it works. It's not the kind of thing that can be debunked.
So I think this is the point in Fuchs's response where he realizes I'm not just another random person who doesn't know what they're talking about, and so he's now resorting to really silly pedantic reasoning, which completely misrepresents the framework of the argument here. In all seriousness, this is the type of argument that only really sounds smart if you don't understand what he's saying. And I suspect Fuchs knows this. So
do you understand what he's saying? I'm not sure.
Exploit disguised as a rational argument. So
are you intentionally fucking up his name, or is that like, is that like a joke? Because if it's not intentional, it doesn't inspire me for you understanding his point. And I don't mean that in a sense like you misunderstand his point and you're not aware. I'm saying you misunderstand his point intentionally, like not even intentional sense. I mean like he's psychologically motivated to push the point down.
What basically doing here is he's performing his usual act of equivocation, where he's treating the act of debunking a concept and how it's defined as the same thing as debunking the reasoning behind how people think about that concept, which is utterly ridiculous and not the point of this conversation between positive and negative freedom at all. If that actually made any sense, then you wouldn't be allowed to poke holes in the reasoning behind any kind of ideology or philosophy, period, which is completely...
Yeah, but the point would be you're still critiquing the fact that somebody is saying they can debunk it. I will say, to be fair to you, it is a bit like of a thing to say you can't debunk capitalism. Yeah, okay, you can't debunk it, but like you can debunk its value. If someone says it is the best system for everyone, well, no, mathematically, no. You can say it's not great, but it's the most it's the best we're going to get. Still no, because there are social democracies out there that are successful, and they are, by the way, very much, they sort of mix this with capitalism and socialism, very much capitalist, but also a bit of socialism as well. They're successful, and if you were to expand that outwards and make that worldwide, they would certainly be even more successful, and they could even drive further into socialism, because obviously, they would have then economies of scale and all these other things that they can benefit from. So really, the argument would be, well, you can technically debunk capitalism as the best system or the most valuable system or the safest system. People have criticized socialism, and then you can debunk socialism by saying, well, socialism wouldn't really work because, it's the equivalent of saying, well, in a state where everyone is doing murder, for you to say as an individual, I think there should be no murder, that kind of thing there. It's like, well, then there's also different arguments there that you can argue even against that. Not going to get into that, but anyway, yeah.
Completely absurd.
I'm not getting into that, yeah.
The format of my argument is really just showing various reasons why we need to focus more on negative freedom over positive freedom. It's the exact same framework that Bush is using for the structure of his argument. He's just giving reasons in various hypothetical scenarios for why we should focus more on positive freedom, why positive freedom should matter more to society. Neither of us are trying to debunk said juxtaposition as Bosch words it. I could technically use the exact same word suit against Bush and claim that he's the one who's trying to refute negative freedom versus positive freedom as a juxtaposition to compare the two. I'm not going to make that argument because the reasons I just stated, it's a stupid argument and it completely misrepresents what both of us are saying, but I totally could. And that's kind of one of the gold standards by which you can immediately tell an argument.
You did say that positive freedom is reliant on negative freedom, but which does not negate the fact that positive freedom is necessary.
Is bad. If you completely flip it on its head without actually changing the reasoning, and it can be used to prove the exact opposite of what was originally claiming, it's usually a bad argument. Because when you apply that way, you're basically refuting yourself, which is what Bush is doing here. But on the flip side, it's kind of nice to see Bush make this argument, because I know from seeing a lot of his content that Bush only engages in this type of equivocation when he knows he's talking to someone who knows what they're talking about more than he does. So it's basically a compliment actually to get this kind of ridiculous.
Do you know that, or do you assume the person he's talking about does know than he does? By the way, once again, I think he's a bit of an idiot, but there are instances where he's made complete gaps and going, that's not true in the slightest. And I mean, like, things that are like basic, sort of do basic enough research to it, and they're kind of like, okay. And I remember it going, is that wait, I was questioning myself, and then we went, okay, I better research that a little bit further. I went, no, never mind. No, yeah, that was a bit nonsense there. It is efficient, I do think, in making you question yourself, and think that if you aren't questioning yourself, there is a problem. You should be able to question yourself, because
This reason coming out of Bush. It's basically going, oh crap, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. I'm doing age equivocation, arguing semantics, competitive over proper academic format, blah blah blah. So yeah, thanks for the compliment, I guess. Anyway, next clip.
This is the right libertarian.
But if he's an idiot, surely then that doesn't make him right when he thinks that it's like someone saying, you're really, really smart. It's like, I'm not, though. I'm not. I get it's kind of a compliment, but from you, is it? Is it really?
Really all arguments. That thing they don't like is that. It's like base number one, bedtimes are theft. Having to do homework stuff.
That's just aggression to steal somebody else's resources. This is not a difficult concept.
It's like base number one, bedtimes are theft. Having to do homework stuff.
That's just aggression to steal somebody else's resources. This is not a difficult concept.
Okay. But if you trick me into giving you an amazing deal, then technically it's theft. Because while you didn't force me with violence, you did use your smarts to trick me, and after the fact, I wasn't happy with the deal. Both sides were not happy with the deal. They were happy with the deal initially when we figuratively speaking, wrote our names down and signed, boom. But we're not happy with the deal afterwards. I'm happy with the deal. You're happy with the deal. What case may be. But if both sides are not happy with the deal after the fact, the argument will be, well, is that not theft?
That we comprehend. Although honestly, I suspect this is just another silly argument for the sake of optics. I'm pretty sure Bush knows that we don't actually consider homework to be theft. So I'm not going to engage further on that one. Next one.
Yeah, but the argument is a contradiction. It's like, well, under this logic, sure, homework will be theft, And if not, if not, then well, that's contradiction.
Assuming that
What? The man going through the desert isn't an absurdist analogy. It's a demonstration of the principle. In order to demonstrate the philosophical principle, you isolate factors and make it very clear what you're talking about. How on earth is a person going around robbing people a demonstration of positive liberty? The liberty of the people he's robbing is being violated.
But it does make a simple point. You said provide a base philosophical argument, which is positive reality people doing that possibility more ways than like goals. It demonstrates theory negative goals.
No. Well,
if you want to make money online as an affiliate marketer, you may find this a little bit controversial, but we've stumbled across a way to earn.
Sure.
I mean, to the extent that so when he says man robbing other people, what he means is taxes.
Yes, Bush, that is the problem. A society that focuses on positive freedom over negative freedom must necessarily violate people's negative freedom. The point of my analogy being to
right, but a positive freedom is okay.
Isolate the problem from the steps that lead to it. It's just A directly stealing from B instead of A using C as a go-between.
Right, but
and this is the problem with a lot of socialists. They just refuse to understand this, even though it's the same thing. It's just thinking.
No, they're not refusing to understand it. They're just saying that just because B is dependent on A, or rather, A point like A and A lowercase, A uppercase and A lowercase. If A lowercase is dependent on A uppercase, well then A uppercase does not. You don't just choose to only have A uppercase just because A lowercase is dependent on A uppercase. That's not how that works. Mostly because you can use, this is how economies work. You can use A lowercase to generate A uppercase. It requires A uppercase first, you might say, but you can create an almost circle thing,
Two chess moves ahead instead of one chess move ahead. And the funny thing is, by him acknowledging that people's liberty is being violated, he's actually admitting that I'm right. He just doesn't realize it. Anyway, next one.
So again, libertarians, the main thing that libertarians care about is taxes and child pay. And in this case,
the way I see it, what the fuck? Okay, Jesus, not the best example to begin. So the way I see it, the age consent exists out of respect for the numerous power balances older people have over younger people, as those imbalances, or at least some of them, are redressed. Though the advent of socialism, the age of consent should have fucking Christ. That's certainly. I hope that's out of context. I feel like it.
Talking about the taxes, and because it
No, you can't say now that you don't do the exact same thing. When you just put that in front of it, like, yeah, you're making a point. Yeah, well, you're a fucking pedophile.
doesn't sound scary to say, well, what if you tax people guarantee other people freedom, which I want, of course. He has to say, well, actually, taxing is when a robber goes around and robs people. Obviously, these aren't comparable at all, but a libertarian would argue that they are because they're both theft or whatever.
Okay, so this is the worst argument against taxation being theft that I've ever seen, because he's not even really arguing against it. I mean, there's legitimately nothing here for me to refute, because there's legitimately no argument. He's just saying, no, if I have Bubba from the IRS steal from you and give to me, it's not the same as me stealing from you directly, because I just say so, and because that just doesn't sound as scary. All he's
No, because equality. If we have an equal position, the robber is making it unequal. They are now gaining the money as an individual. If you have a Robin Hood situation where they're like, oh, okay, you have 10 coins. Okay, there are 9 people there. Give me 9 of your coins. I already have a coin, so you know. So give me 9 of your coins. I'm going to take 9 of those coins and I'm going to distribute them among those 9 people. Now everyone has the same amount of coins. Do you see what I mean? You have more coins than you need, or at least should have. So now we're equal. You don't have all of your coins taken. You have the 9 coins taken. Now, in a robber situation, where it's just a robber, they take all of your coins, and now they just become the person with the coins. They just become the wealthy person. They just replace whom it is. Obviously, in a real robber situation, most of your coins aren't on you. So, you know, it doesn't really work as a concept. But, you know, you understand the point, though.
doing here is refusing to accept the logical conclusion of the argument. He might as well just say, no, actually, taxation isn't theft because I say so. Oh, yeah, destroyed. And this is really sad because
And that's the key point, though. Taxation is on all your wealth, while robbing is on just the wealth you're carrying. So, you know, no. Equality is not the same as, you know, like if someone robs you and distributes it, yeah, that is different to somebody robbing you and keeping it. If robbing you and keeping it, they're just becoming the wealthy person. Anyway.
there's way better arguments against taxation being theft than this. See, smart people, smart economists anyway, who understand that the arguments for why taxation is theft can't actually be defeated, will argue instead that yes, taxation is theft, but it's necessary theft. In other words, people give a utilitarian argument for taxation. They'll say, okay, yes, it is theft because you don't want to pay this, it's not voluntary, but society needs these taxes in order to function. That's basically the classical liberal argument on taxation. They'll say, okay, yes, this isn't voluntary, but we need to do it because we need to have a state in order for our society to work, because we need a government to do their
I mean, we could just legislate so you can't.
basically, they'll give the night watchman argument, or the idea you would need at the very least a minimum amount of state that collects a minimum amount of funding. And that's kind of where the debate between the Mises Institute and the Cato Institute comes in, both which are technically within right-wing libertarian thought. Mises just being further to the right. But of course, the classical liberal
Okay.
also agree with me that you need to focus more on negative freedom because negative freedom creates the wealth that allow you to do a positive freedom. So the correct argument to make is surrounding whether or not it is a necessary evil, as opposed to what Bush is saying here, where he's basically just giving no argument at all. There's legitimately nothing here. So let's move on to the next point.
bakeries cannot exist without taxes in the modern form because taxes are what provides for the roads and the regulations, for food that allows them to bake it, and construction that allows them to house the bakery. On every level, taxes supply the resources that allow modern life to exist. The only way to get around that is to say, well, what if private corporations sell it, in which case you'd be paying for that too.
If you have an hour this
Oh my
week, you can learn
fucking
100 songs
God,
on
the
the
amount of
piano by
ads.
learning just 4 chords. These.
Oh boy. More roads. So it's actually something I was going to do an entire month so on. And maybe I'll do it sometime. But basically just that is if people want something, that means there's a market for it, which means you could technically do it using the free market. The funny thing about more roads
This actually is not a great idea because, you know, you remember when Voss was arguing about the whole thing of like if there's a monopoly? Well, you know, now there just is a monopoly on roads, or at least on the individual road. You know, obviously you could build more roads, but how many roads can you build to one bakery? You know, at a certain point, it's just like there's so many fucking roads, man. We have just too many roads. It's like, okay, but no one wants to use these roads. So now the roads are going to go out of business. If there's so much competition, but there's like, and people disperse around the competition because there's no specific one that's the best because, you know, you can improve the road, I guess, but then what if competition also improves the roads? And if you're always equal, well, then you're dispersed and you just lose money. You're not able to service that road properly because everyone is separated out. So, okay, that wouldn't work then. So either you're doing option 1, where it's as competitive as we can get with the roads, privately owned. So there are multiple roads going to all the same locations, okay? Similar to maybe like different train lines that go to the same location. Okay, so multiple roads going to the same location. So road A, road B, road C. Okay, in that scenario, they would all probably fail because people would disperse out, unless you're saying that you can split it in 4, in which case those roads are going to be pretty small, but then also people who are going to go on the road that's widest because that's the fastest. So, you know, it's not, you're probably going to end up in that scenario with all roads failing. Possibly then, what's going to happen is one road will have enough money, maybe from just other stuff, to sort of get by, and they'll go, no, and they'll let the other roads fail. Maybe they'll buy them out, or maybe not, and they'll just become the main road. So now we've got back to our home monopoly scenario. And now, even if there are loads of different companies operating roads, that individual road is monopolized. If I'm a corporation, and I have a monopoly, I'm going to abuse it. Unless I'm not allowed, in which case, why the fuck would that not be an infringement on my, you know, thing, you know? Why would that not be infringement? You know? You're saying negative liberty. Why would that not be infringement on it? Because I'm not able to profit off that road as much as I could. People are willing to pay for it. You go, well, people are willing to pay for it because they need to. Because they can't get the bakery if not. Another bakery is only just about making money. Because of your road system, that bakery is spending so much fucking money on roads. It's fuck. Okay, move somewhere else. Okay? It's the same scenario. Maybe it's a completely different person who owns roads, but it's still somebody who has a monopoly on the roads. it doesn't really work because at the end of the day, the concept of having a private corporation owning things is the private corporation would like to make the most amount of money. The only way for you to regulate that is the only way for you to stop a private corporation from just pricing people out of the market so that they just about make a profit on the bread or just about make a profit on the thing they're using the road for is legislation. And at that point, you're just basically doing the exact same thing as building the road would do anyway. You're just wasting stuff, and then no one's going to want to build the roads. Because if I remove it so you can't really make much of a profit, okay, well then why would I build the roads? Why wouldn't I do all the other things you could do where you can have a monopoly and no one really cares because it's like, not really important. And if you have a government that goes to ban all monopolies of all types, which by the way, most governments do not do, even the European Union, who has a ban on monopolies, still has monopolies. They just, in general, not as important, but sometimes they very much are. But that's the thing that occurs, and customers lose out in those scenarios. And when those customers are the businesses, that's a problem. So this doesn't really work because eek. So just that's preface it.
Roads is not even a good argument against this, because at least in the United States of America, you might not know this, but the roads are already built by private companies. So people in the city want roads.
Yes, but they're owned by the corporate. They're owned generally by the state, or they are rented out by the state.
Or want to deal with the government, they could technically just crowdfund those companies to build roads for them.
No, in many countries, the roads are technically speaking owned by private companies. The thing is, though, is that they're owned by private companies with a certain legislation in mind. Like motorways in my countries are owned by private corporations, but there are things called tolls. They're not government tolls; they're private tolls. And when you pass on those roads, you pay a toll. But if tomorrow those tolls said it'll be €5,000 to come to pass this toll, and they were like, by the way, we can charge this because we did some calculations and we figured out that a bunch of people just won't use the toll road, but it's worth it for enough people that will make enough money. Now, obviously, I don't think 5,000 would be actually, it would make them enough money, but you get the picture. Whatever the max is where they could make more money, the thing is, the government will know, because it's a road. We need the roads. So, yes, you can charge a amount of money because you did build the road, you paid for it, but, we need to pay that off, obviously, pay the money off. But so what happens there is that they just give them a contract to have the toll for however many years. And that toll company is going, okay, we'll raise the price. And, they're allowed to raise the price by a certain amount and all this sort of stuff. They're allowed to increase the price and they're allowed to charge all this money. But they're not allowed to charge insane amounts of money because the government will be aware, well, that's going to price a bit too many people on the market. Some people are not going to go on the road because there's a toll there. That's reducing efficiency, but the government goes, okay, well, that's the benefit, that's the trade-off for not building it with our own money.
However, in this context, it honestly doesn't really matter, because Bush is arguing for positive freedom in regards to socialism, which is way more extreme than just anything to do with roads. And that's a really important thing to point out here. Even if you don't agree with the extreme position on positive and negative liberty either way, even if you don't agree with it in the extreme like I'm pushing it, you have to at least accept the fact that on a base level, I'm correct. Things need to at the very least be slanted towards negative freedom, because that is how wealth is created, and that's how you get
Okay, but address the fact that monopoly roads doesn't work, though.
the benefits of positive liberty. Spoiler alert, Bush does not acknowledge this point properly anywhere in his response to me. This is a very important thing to understand, because this is how socialists grift the centrists. He's basically saying, okay, you already accept that the government taxes you for XYZ thing, so why not more taxation on ABC for more free stuff until we have some.
Okay, but that's like not how that works, though. But anyway.
Socialism. Now, even if you don't agree with voluntarism or opt-in communities or anarcho-capitalism or any other spin on a potential system that uses Austrian economics that doesn't weigh the facts entirely, even if those things aren't your forte, you're not convinced by any of that, that doesn't change the fact that my point still stands for why negative liberty is needed to create positive liberty. And thus, at the very least, you will always want your economic system to be biased
You're still not addressing the whole thing of the roads, though.
in favor of the negative, no matter how you cut it. You definitely don't want to do socialism. But yeah, let's move on to the next point.
Why? No, seriously, why?
The myth of like everyone homesteading and going out on their own and living entirely on their own is a purely modern myth. It's like the idea of man, an independent agent going out there and existing as a purely like autonomous agent. This is like a jerk-off, like insecure male fantasy, which is entirely the product of like post-modernity anxiety. It is completely disconnected from reality or history. It's just silly, like even to engage with these arguments.
So this is another thing that nobody on the libertarian right actually believes. Those of us who sincerely study this stuff understand that in practice.
Okay, no, you gotta say no one with who's aware, no one who is something like that, where you're pointing to someone who's fully aware of the negative things you shouldn't do, because there are certainly people who do believe that. Let's be honest, but maybe not you.
So this is another thing that nobody on the libertarian right actually believes. Those of us who sincerely study this stuff understand that in practice, any form of austro-libertarianism would be coming communities in private cities. There's a pretty good article on this on the Institute. I don't remember the exact name of the article off the top of my head, but I'll link it and include it once I actually get editing this video. Those of us on the libertarian right who actually research this stuff, or in other words,
I mean, the thing is, people have tried, private cities, and they failed. Actually, they failed more than socialism has failed, technically speaking. So, I mean, that's technically, it depends on what you define as a private city, and what you define as socialism. But that's the key thing there, though, that they have tried private cities. So why exactly has something that has failed? Why is that still being talked about? Always, because
we understand that we live in a society. So this is just more of Bush not really understanding what he's arguing against. Or I guess another way to put it is he's arguing against how a 14-year-old might misunderstand libertarianism at first glance. Most times already pretty familiar with the true main.
Yes, but the point is that what you said is private cities, but private cities have failed. So you have to kind of argue that those things have failed because of other unrelated factors. For example, the fact that they are too small. That there's enough people going to them.
Incorrect. There are no economists who have a problem with taxes. There just aren't. You can't be an economist if you have a problem with that.
This is just totally ridiculously wrong. Every economist has some kind of take on taxes. If you're talking about specifically those who want to either reduce it or abolish it, that would be the Austrian School of Economics, and those who want to reduce it would be usually the
that he is wrong, Vosh, with that one.
It was not the Chicago School of Economics. But Bush is probably
Because
referring
technically, like, what do you mean is an economist? Like someone who has a degree in economics, or someone who studies it, or at what point do you become an economist? You could be an economist who is just bad at your idea of study, and be whatever ideology you are, and be just bad at it. And by the way, this doesn't mean that the thing you're arguing for it has bad arguments. It just means that you're arguing badly for that thing. So just what she's wrong about that. Anyway.
to the academic consensus
But
Keynesian
possibly it could be a whole thing of clipping out of context.
economic, and even then they just kind of ignore the problem of taxation, or they'll give arguments for why it's a good thing. But everybody has some kind of problem to solve when it comes to economics and taxes. So I guess Vush is just pretending the Austrian school doesn't exist because
Sorry.
Vush is probably referring to would be should that be the Austrian school? This is just utterly ridiculously
Incorrect. There are no economists who have a problem with taxes. There just aren't. You can't be an economist if you have a problem with that.
this is just utterly ridiculously wrong. Every economist has some kind of take on
Yeah.
taxes. If you're talking about specifically those who want to either reduce it or abolish it, that would be the Austrian School of Economics.
Okay,
Those who want to reduce it would be usually the Cato Institute and often the Chicago School of Economics.
Yeah.
What Vush is probably referring to would be academic consensus Keynesian economic, and even then they just kind of ignore the problem of taxation, or they'll give arguments for why it's a good thing. But everybody has some kind of problem to solve when it comes to economics and taxes.
Problem to solve.
So I guess Vush is just pretending.
In economics, no, it's just you were just talking about taxes. So not necessarily. If someone's like, no, I like the way the system is now. It works fine now. It's fine now. There's no need to do anything. Well, then, no, not necessarily. But maybe that's your opinion, and maybe you think it's fact. But that would mean you wouldn't have a problem with it. But
Getting the Austrian school
that's
doesn't
kind of wrong. But yeah.
exist because it's not my academic consensus. Okay, well, need I remind you that neither is Marxian economics. So if Vush wants to play this card and makes it
What?
exist because it's not my academic consensus, it has some kind of problem to solve when it comes to economics and taxes. So I guess Vush is just pretending the Austrian school doesn't exist because it's not my academic consensus. Okay, well, need I remind you that neither is Marxian economics. So if Vush wants to play
Not really true. It's sort
this
of.
card makes this argument, it could just easily be used against him if he pushes that to its logical conclusion.
I'm pretty sure both of those are technically speaking, they're not like in the same way, but
And that's just another one of the
is it American focus? Maybe I'm not quite sure because no, it doesn't really work.
very many reasons why my academic consensus is rarely a productive argument. That's just what people in the ivory tower believe. It does not encompass all of economics at all, anywhere close. Which again, Vush as a socialist knows this. So he's once again using an argument that could just as easily
No, you don't know something just because your economical ideals.
be used against himself. But anyways, now for the absolute worst argument against praxeology you've ever seen. Get ready.
You no longer believe in economy. You believe in like praxeology or some kind of obscure, like purely hypothetical. Like it's not real thing. It's not real. It's made. I always feel like the fascists have better social ground for their arguments than the libertarians.
Did you see that? Praxeology isn't true because it isn't real. Alright, so for those of you who do not know, praxeology comes from the economist Ludwig von Mises. It's basically the theory that man acts, that men have purposeful behavior in order to achieve an intended goal. In other words, say you have the intended goal of drinking some water. So what do you do? Well, you decide to get up and go to the water fountain and refill your water bottle or whatever. Congratulations, you just accepted the basics of praxeology. It is just the idea that you engage in conscious actions toward chosen goals. The funny thing is, in order to debunk praxeology like this, you have to assume that praxeology is correct, because Vush coming up with an argument against praxeology is a conscious action towards the goal of trying to debunk praxeology. This doesn't necessarily mean that praxeology is unfalsifiable. It's just really hard to disprove for the same reason that other very logically.
Is it relevant though? It will be the question. Thus, arguing that it's not really real in an economical sense because it's not relevant. It's just literally nothingness.
All arguments are difficult to disprove. It's the same reason.
It's like saying the universe exists, and it's like, well, okay, you can change the concept of the universe, and then boom. Even if you're wrong about the universe as a concept, you just change the what you term as the universe, and then boom, it's solved.
Right, you can't really disprove
Sorry, that's not a very good explanation. What I'm trying to say is it's nothingness.
It's a logically rock solid concept. And to say it's not true because it just isn't real, that's just a circular argument. He's asserting that praxeology isn't real.
Yeah, but circular argument is not necessarily a false argument. In fact, it's an argument that you actually are talking about nothingness. That if you're able to create a circular argument, it's like the whole thing is nothingness. If I'm able to say, well, this thing is. Well, there's no way to describe it. It just is this thing. Well, then this thing is not a concept. It's just an invention of humanity, which is real, but also it's not really real. It is nothingness in a sense, which means it doesn't exist, but it also does. It's just
Prove it isn't real while using praxeology to do so. It's really stupid. No economist has ever been able to properly refute praxeology. What you get instead are people like Vush who think they can debunk praxeology because they don't understand it, or they just outright reject rational thinking as a way of understanding the universe, which is
anything really is.
some mega yikes. So yeah, moving on to the next one. Anyways, the negative versus positive free argument is just a free market capitalism versus socialism question. Again, just being taken from a slightly different angle.
It's not. It's just the basic concept of social wealth.
The negative versus positive free argument is just a free market capitalism versus socialism question to understand the universe, which is mega yikes. So yeah, moving on to the next one. Anyways, the negative
The whole sound difference is annoying.
versus positive free argument is just a free market
I'm aware I have a problem with that myself. But anyway.
capitalism versus socialism question. Again, just being taken from a slightly different angle.
It's not. It's just the basic concept of social welfare and freedom. Notice how he hasn't actually tackled the underlying justification for the issue, the idea of maximizing how much people can do as opposed to just removing restrictions on their behavior. He's not addressed it. All he's done is said, well, if you believe in positive liberty, that means you believe in taxes. So this once again shows that Vush doesn't really understand what my argument is. I have tackled the underlying justification for this issue. My point is that it's flawed because negative freedom will create the benefits of positive freedom. If you actually
No, it won't though. No.
want the benefits of greater social welfare, you have to focus more on negative freedom. Because
No, but this is a fundamental setting of market. So everyone cannot bake bread. There isn't enough demand for that. You can create over demand than consumption. People can demand more than they actually consume. Like not okay. This is bad because consumption is also a word that's used in economics. What I mean is consumption separate the word of consumption from economics and base it now in the idea of just literal media consumption, like actually watching the stuff or actually consuming the bread. It does get difficult, I think, when discussing these academic terms, when academic terms are also used in the general sense, but they're used differently. For example, I was reacting to a video where priests were saying, when Trevor Noah said that the church had condemned people, and they went, well, they didn't say condemned. They instantly jumped to condemned in the religious sense, instead of going, well, maybe Trevor Noah is not talking about the religious sense, and is instead talking about the general sense of the word condemned. So when I say consumed, I do mean in the general sense, not in the economic sense, or the business sense. So people do often demand more than they consume as a market. But you will generally not be able to make that gap so wide that you are able to make everyone be able to do a job. of baking bread or doing this or doing that, whatever the case may be, because I can bake more bread than I can consume in the time that I make the bread in. You know,
Because that is what creates. Again, Boosh is just
and if everyone is when do you get time off in the life?
confusing the benefits you get from having wealth with wealth generation itself. It's like he just doesn't get that. If you want to maximize the number of things people can do, you need wealth.
Interestingly, if you give people the option to work less, then they can demand more because they have more time. You know, if I have less money, I have to purchase things that are cheaper. It means that those things that are more expensive, that take more time, that does take more labor, possibly from multiple people. So you actually are killing jobs thus by demanding mass production of cheap items.
Wealth. You need
You know,
the stuff to be able to do it. The question here is, how do you get the stuff? How do you incentivize society to create the stuff? And that is
automation is a problem here because can everyone get a job? Like if you maximize automation, this is one of the issues, which is a business person wants people to be paid as much as they can be, except for one thing, their own employees. If I own a business, I want everyone in the market to be paid as much as they can. I want them to be billionaires. I want every single person in the market to be billionaires except my own employees and my suppliers. I don't want my suppliers, they're people, and I don't want my employees. I don't want anyone in that area to be paid well. But outside of that sphere of influence, I want them paid a lot of money because that means they will be able to demand more. And automation is one of the things linked to that, which is, well, if I'm a business person, I don't want to automate fully. First of all, there's the risk of, you have to have massive capital investment into it. A government could do that. But also there's the fact of, if I introduce automation, well, I'm basically killing off my own market for many products. For non-necessities, I'm killing off my market anyway, just by base of the fact that I'm now firing people off. So they won't demand it if they don't have the money. Now, of course, their only problem is they also won't demand needs. They will demand it, but they just won't be able to pay the prices. So I'll have to reduce my prices. Thus, increasing automation is not necessarily good enough because you have to then go, okay, but now now people don't have any money. So who has a job if you automate? If you replace all the jobs, you're able to do the job of making the bread, but without anyone actually, you know, doing anything. So bread just appears, not magically, but also technically, yeah, almost as if it was grown by nature. You're basically creating a mechanical form of nature where it's man-made, yes, but it also isn't in the same way that actually not in the same way, but the same way sort of kind of the AI creates an image. Like it's new, but it's a mix of all these different things, and that's what this sort of mechanical thing is. Where it is man-made, it is nature, it is natural, it is naturally occurring, but it also kind of is once man has removed himself from that. By the way, man is sexist in its form, so you know what I mean. But to move from that, the point is, it is a key thing that you have to ask yourself is what would you do with automation? Would you ban automation? Because if I'm a corporation, I'm going for automation. I could choose automation, but that's not a smart business idea. You know? But
where
government,
socialism falls flat. That is my entire point. For instance, how in a social society do you convince people to do the jobs that nobody wants to do? For
the point is you automate a good chunk of jobs. And by the way, like, what jobs does nobody want to do?
instance, who cleans the sewers out?
People, there are people who are willing to clean the sewers out. Not necessarily who want to clean the sewers out for 10 hours every day for the rest of their life. But there are people who are willing to clean the sewers out. And also, if you have automation, which you could do, you can automate a lot of that. That's a thing you can do. Do you want to do that? In a social society, you don't have that business problem of, well, if I automate, then I basically collapse the market. Because if I automate everything and I make it so that I don't have any bakers, because my baker business, my baker business has no one actually making the bread, because I have people who, I've robots in the fields and they're rearing the natural resources. And I also have solar panels that automatically give power to those robots, and those robots then load it onto automated trains that bring the food processed to my factories, where robots will take the crates off and they will make it into bread, and that bread will be shipped out on automated trains all around the world, and thus my bread factory supplies the world with bread that no human has been in the production making it. They have been in the production making those robots, but then of course then we have robots to make robots. And at that point we now have a automated society where all these things are automated. So there's a certain amount of things you can automate that you wouldn't automate in a general business society because it would make no business sense. But you could do that under socialism. So
important question. It's a serious question. Someone has to do it. In market economy, the answer to this is really easy. If nobody wants to do it, then the demand for that job will gradually rise, and so the price of that job will rise until someone decides, hey, this is a really lucrative career. I'm going to do it.
okay, but let's just see. It's a fairly lucrative career. We see here. We've got ourselves our lows of $15 an hour and our highs of $33 an hour. I mean, it's pretty good, It's pretty good. It's higher than the minimum wage, I guess. But not sure if you'd be doing that, to be honest. Not sure if you'd be doing that. To be honest, I have a feeling that that's not exactly a great example because $15 an hour is not like really good. It's just higher than minimum.
But socialism really doesn't have an answer to this, because again, they don't understand how incentives.
It is though. There is an answer to it. It's very very simple. First of all, there's dividing labour up. There's just simple enough dividing labour up. You just don't work someone very hard. You just say there we are. We just clean the sewers. And also, by the way, people will clean the sewers because they know there's a necessity to do so. Like the sewers need to be cleaned. So which is better, not clean the sewers or having a backed up sewer. I feel like there's going to be a certain demand for people to clean the sewers anyway. Also, you realize people clean their own sewers, like they clean their own endpoint. Like I have people who clean the sewers multiple times. They haven't cleaned the actual sewer, the endpoint, but they've cleaned the endpoint where it's their end of the sewer, where they're dumping waste, and there's a clog or whatever the case may be. I've done that. I've declogged it within sewers around houses, because that's what you do. So people do it for free for their own end. In a society where they're paid for it a good wage, well, that would work. And in a society where you don't have that sort of aspect of wage and prices, you just simply have a simple thing of that's you divide labor up. And maybe I'm not the best person to discuss this, but yeah, you can look up all these sort of things. I'm not actually probably a good person to discuss this because I haven't looked into it. But yeah, you can find people who go, yeah, no, this is how you do it. There are multiple ways around it. One of them.
Work to create wealth because they reject axiology. They reject the idea that man acts on a desired goal. They refuse to look at the economy from a standpoint of
No, one person did that to you. You can't apply that to all socialists.
logic. And that's why what I'm saying is just completely flying over Bush's head. I understand the justification that Bush is giving for positive liberty. He does not understand the justification I'm giving for negative liberty, because his rejection of man as a rational being acting towards rational goals prevents him from understanding it. It's a lot more complicated than just taxes. Anyway, I'll move on to the next point.
Social welfare policies have generally increased the overall wealth of society, in fact, massively so. You can engage in a positive liberty-oriented standpoint without being a socialist, but again, you just have to believe in taxes. And since every society in existence applies taxes, except for, I don't know.
Is, or are they? Are they trying to avoid getting copyright claimed by what?
Eastern Syria, Somalia, I don't know. Since all meaningful societies have taxes, all meaningful societies are in some way engaged in the underlying line of logic that supplies the baseline for positive liberty.
So what you just saw was a post-hoc or property policy, combined with shifting of the goalposts. Yes, it's true that just about every Western democracy or every first world country post mid-1900s has adopted some kind of form or another of New Deal style basic level of social benefits program. There's no society that 100% fits the definition of free market, and there's no society right now.
I mean, to be fair, that's mostly because societies that don't tended to see their population risk into the aspect of having a lot of young people very much pregnant, and a lot of young people, but not a whole lot of middle-aged people. You have this sort of thing where people can survive. People who survive as middle-aged and become old, but most people don't survive into middle age because they die as a young person, because they can't survive through this. And that's because, in essence, if you don't have a social welfare program and your economy isn't structured in a way that allows people to earn that money, they just don't. Because in a competition scenario, at the end of the day, the person who acts the most unethically, within the rules at least, or at least within the idea that they are acting within the rules, even if they're not, they are going to be the one who wins. And there is only so much money in the economy. We can print more of it, yes, but while money is fake, it's it's agreed upon that it's not. So effectively, it's not. It's once again that situation where yes, money is fake, but also is it though? Because we both agree, complex philosophical discussions on that to be undertaken. But the point is that at the end of the day, you do have to understand that we do have a bit of a difference in our work. We do look at history. We do see that causes problems, and you're going to have a massive issue. Also, that is also how you tend to lead to have a revolution. If you just don't give people anything, they go, fuck this, we're going to take over. And that's also, in a way, how you can get different things beyond just, it's not just socialism, it's just more other things as well, can occur when you have the system in place where you just ignore these things.
Definition of socialism. Some come very close either way, but there's no 100%. The point of this doesn't actually prove the causation, because when you look at countries more closely, you see that countries that adopted more socialist policies actually performed more poorly than countries that named more free market. Again, this is another grift that socialists like to use to try and convince its interests.
This isn't actually a great example, because, for example, the US. By the way, I have covered this in the past. I think I may have not given the best light to this, because like for example, the US has put blockades on likes of North Korea, but that doesn't make North Korea not a dictatorship. That sort of thing there. It's like, well, there's faults on both sides, kind of thing. But when you see the likes of Cuba, where you have blockades and threats if other countries try to get around those blockades and give those countries aid, that is a problem where bully countries will result in the nation states who have socialism looking worse. Like that will be extortion. It's equivalent of saying, well, people who wear blue out, they just perform worse in the market. They earn less money. It's like, no, because remember, not really, because remember, we right now have a gang of people who just attack people who wear blue, and they say, give me the money, or we'll invade, and we'll sorry, make some things, we'll kill you. I'm like, okay, imagine people just rob people who wear blue. Some people who wear blue look like they're not earning much money. Oh, that's because they had stuff stolen from them. Not a great example, but you can kind of see my point. It doesn't really work when you have countries like the US putting blockades on other countries, because you remove that, not really, and it doesn't really function.
Even though socialists like Bush would not consider any of these countries truly socialist. Yes, it's true that none of these countries have adopted the Austrian school of economics method, but that doesn't prove that that's where their wealth comes.
Yeah, but see that even goes beyond there. Like the fact is, if you look at North Korea is not a socialist country necessarily, and sorry, that's a key point. Sorry, actually props actually to you because you mentioned the fact that they're not socialist. Well, you said that I shouldn't consider them socialist, but yeah, that is a key point. The socialist, and then you can go beyond that and go, you can attack the fact that they're not even socialists themselves, and that is another key thing, which is if they're not socialists, you're implying that they are socialists, but of course they're only socialists in the eyes of countries that blockade them. Thus, if we remove the blockade, would true socialist countries come about? Maybe. Who knows?
And it certainly doesn't prove whether or not they'd be better off otherwise. And Bush is definitely shifting the goalposts here. Because yeah, it's true you can have some focus on positive liberty without being a socialist. And again, there's nothing wrong with positive liberty because, as I stated, I'm not trying to debunk the very concept of positive liberty. I'm just trying to explain why you need negative liberty in order to get to it. There's no dichotomy here. But simply pointing out that there's some societies that have some focus on positive freedom, not as much as him. It's kind of a moot point. It doesn't really prove anything. Again, I'll try to stem from the fact that Bush doesn't really understand my argument. Anyway, next point.
What? He keeps saying ethnics instead of ethics. Do you think he's just so used to making racialist arguments that it's not just like towards that whenever he says something closer?
Oh yes, here we go. The whole thing of Vosh's stick. He really can't just, he
Oh,
can't do this. He
is that the first time you said their name properly, or?
is incapable of arguing against anyone to the right of them without at some point implying that they're either a secret racist or a Nazi.
Sorry.
He can't do this. He is incapable of arguing against anyone to the right of them without at some point implying of Vosh's.
Do you think he's just so used to making racialist arguments that it's not just like towards that whenever he says something closer?
Oh yes, here we go. The whole thing of Vosh's stick. He really can't just, he can't do this. He is incapable of arguing against anyone to the right of them without at some point implying that they're either a secret racist or a Nazi or something along this line.
I understand the go over the German party that was in power in the 40s, early 40s,
And this is probably the most ridiculous one, but it's also a funny one because we can use Google AI to prove that it's incorrect. If you look at what
Oh god, that's.
Google AI picked up this transcript of my original.
Don't give them chance of ethics. Versus is dying. Most people will choose to throw away ethics and just not die. Obviously, that is not ethical, but it doesn't matter. That's just how human.
Video, you can see it does not say ethnics. Unless people who watch my content all the time know that I don't use ethnic differences as arguments or anything anyways, so it doesn't really matter, it's just obviously false. But it is kind of funny to just have objective proof right here that Bush is indeed suffering from some audio hallucinations. It's like
I will say, if you spend your days listening to people who believe that the people who were in charge in the early 40s in Germany were good, that you will begin to correct your mind. So I don't think that that's very fair. I don't think you're being fair to Vosh.
he's so used to false accusations of bigotry as one of his main go-to.
No, he's not used to false accusations. He's used to being right about people being in support of the party that was in power in Germany in the 1940s. And that is just true. Like there, I'd say a good chunk of people who I would look at who he would disagree with in the sense that they are very right wing. That he would be right about them being supporters of that said party. But it's not false accusations. It's just factual. And then you happen to be a person who's on the right, and unfortunately you're not. And of course I'm not saying that you aren't. I'm just saying that you're saying.
Non-arguments that he's actually mind-screwed himself into hearing it even when it's not happening. Are the Newtsies in the room with us right now, Bush? I'm pretty sure when I watch this once before, Bush actually does at one point call me a Newtsie. If he does, I just came up with a great thumbnail idea for this video. So moving on to the next point.
What's them? Also,
Wow. Apparently I'm ending up giving the money anyway. It's a gambling company, so fuck it.
you can take a look at how many elderly people died in poverty before and after these social security systems were introduced. The government is just much better at it. Like 400 years ago in London, they're probably worse than Christian organizations that would try to help the poor and homeless. But according to studies that I've definitely looked at, 99.9% of people in London 400 years ago died at 12 years old in miserable poverty. The government is just better at this.
Okay, this is a really bad argument. Bush is confusing the benefits of rising medical technology or back social safety nets. No, people.
That's fair enough. I would argue that there are some criticisms to be made where you go, well, that it's one difference with another difference. It's like, well, between non-state backed and state backed, state backed is better. And then also, by the way, as well, time, because as well,
People in London dying 400 years ago had nothing to do with social safety nets or anything like that. People
yeah, but I brought up that example though. It's about caring.
used to die younger because medical science back then wasn't as advanced. Which, by the way,
Not really, no. Medical science wasn't as advanced, but also it was mostly because people didn't care.
all those breakthroughs come from private companies in the United States with the healthcare system that do shakes
Actually, they don't come from private companies. They come from private companies being funded by the United States government.
so much. So
Most drugs are funded by the government, actually, in the United States, which you might want to look up. It's a bit of a problem. Most research is funded by the government. It's funded into private companies.
that's just another yikers argument right there. Or really just another post hoc about rock. Socialism is not when science is sorry. No, rather scientific innovation overwhelmingly comes from the wealth created.
No, that's just not true. It comes from governments who give the money to private companies who then take it and use it.
Anyway, hold on to the next point. Let me use this back.
They also, by the way, use their own profits. But they use the profits from, for example, if you're Eli Lilly and you kill a few thousand, if not million people via just not giving them insulin for the diabetes, then you can then take some of the profits from those people who were able to pay, and you can then research a different drug. Except of course a small, more substantial sum of that money is actually going into ensure that your patents don't end up getting trashed out of the market. So there's a certain thing there which you go, if you just remove patent law, you gain a little bit of influence there. That's the thing there. So question that,
Well, that's actually did work. If that's certain things like healthcare, I think we're talking better than the corporate healthcare system that America has today. At the very least,
wait, where? What? What do you mean corporatist? The private healthcare system? Is there a
technically speaking, the private healthcare system in America is one of the worst in the world. So, that's not.
As external studies and look on service members. The usual approach for document-based healthcare in exchange for salary based on the size of membership. How is this a baseline provision? This is just people paying. This is people in a membership paying for medical care. Healthcare in exchange for a salary based on the size of the membership. This is just how does this fix inaccessibility of healthcare for the poor? Yeah, it's just a less efficient version of insurance. This is literally how health insurance companies started. Yeah, this was the beginning point. Just like the origin point.
Anyway, so this revolution drastically misrepresents what a mutual aid or fraternal benefit order is. They were much more like
Are you suggesting just basically the idea of the government, but just without the government? Like everyone pays into a fund, or?
communities, which included things like social gatherings rather than just a insurance company or an archaic precursor to them. They were based on freedom of association,
I believe last week tonight did a video on this though.
and they usually had some kind of cultural goal as well established within their economic goal, which is nice because it also gave people who were rich enough to not need the financial benefits to join the social network anyways, in order to reap the social benefits, because people want to be part of your community. And this is where things get kind of sad, and it's where I want to take a look at a additional point I made, because Vush's take could be easily refuted by just simply watching my video on maternal societies, or just
Or your take could be reviewed by watching last week tonight's video on this sort of thing.
clicking on it and looking at the book source I used, which was a book on From Mutual Aid to Welfare State. And this is where I have to point something out a little bit unfortunate here, because I know it's usually poor taste to talk about a influencer's community, but this needs to be pointed out because it's important. Vush's audience, unfortunately, as it turns out, does not fact check him in any meaningful way. At least not one that I can measure. When I first released the video on Bosch and the Positive Freedom Earth, people did check out the Fraternal Society's video to check what my source was and to see if I was correct. At least. However, when Vush released his response to me, none of his audience actually watched that video, even though me calling to action to go see that video was in Vush's response. It was there, there's something she responded to, but none of them actually watched the video. So they weren't even interested in seeing whether or not what Bosch was telling them was true. There's no attempt whatsoever to historically fact check it. And again, it's poor taste, it's bad faith to call the community stupid, so I'm not going to do that. Because honestly,
Sorry, just think. With this, I'm not quite sure what they're saying, but like, it appears they're saying that they released a video on Vosh and their other video got views. That could literally just be people who don't like Vosh, who are become like potential fans of your audience. If not, it's just how the algorithm works. As in, the algorithm has the baseline views, and then the Vosh people watching the other video, and then when Vosh makes his response, the algorithm has lowered the views down. And actually, if it wasn't for the fact that you were talking about Vosh, that the algorithm would have basically almost flatlined the views down to a much lower level. That they pushed it up, but not up to the level where there was a spike. But only in the sense that, well, because it was already a previous spike. This is the problem, which I think a lot of content creators misunderstand. They look at their algorithmic history and they go, oh, look, there was a spike here and a drop here. You don't know any of this because, there's a certain amount of this that where, the algorithm will reduce views. And then you'll have a video where someone will bunch of people go over and they'll watch the video, but the algorithm will reduce the views. Those views will bring it up a little bit. So, it won't be a spike. It'll just be a flat line there. And that to me is probably what went on there. Because as far as I can tell, it doesn't look to me like there is much of a scenario there, when the video was launched, like stayed where it was, and then it went down a little bit, but like it seems to me like that thing. Anyway, just a side thing there. Just doesn't seem very valid.
a lot of them are dumb. They're just young. I think Vush mostly panders.
I mean, I will say, to be fair, like, did you see every single chat? Also, people do not particularly like to critique the person they're watching, because at that point you're basically just hate watching, basically, that's not really true, is it? But, you're beginning the process of hate watching. We're like, you're wrong again, you're wrong again, you're wrong again, you're wrong again, chatting away. They're not going to actually, like, it's the Hassan model where they'll either just ignore what you're saying or they'll make fun of you. It's not going to really do anything. It's just going to piss them off.
It's kind of young
No, not necessarily all the time, but, just, it's very likely they're just going to piss them off.
teenage audience, and that's fine. A lot of us believe dumb things when we're teenagers.
I see, the thing is, when people see this on YouTube, I feel like they look at the majority of YouTube, like they look at the stats on YouTube as a whole, and they try and apply that to. Right? I think one of the worst things is when people try and refute this kind of going, oh no, look, the majority of my audience are like 18 to. It's like, no, that's definitely people creating accounts where they say their age and then they deliberately put it up. But of course, there are a multitude of people who aren't signed in, who are watching videos that are not signed in. Their age is not going to come up on these. On all the information, because Google is not going to categorically state this is their age. They're going to make a rough estimation, but they're probably going to keep that themselves. I'm not quite sure if non-signed in people, if their estimated age by Google gets logged. I doubt it. I mean, when I say logged, I mean logged with the YouTuber. So there's all that. There's definitely a thing there. So I just find it very annoying. People say, oh, your teenage audience, your child audience. You don't know what the audience is.
At least myself when I was a teenager. It's a phase you go through, and then you grow up and you wise up. That's fine. But I will say there's just
Right. And why did you believe in socialism? Because I wonder why.
because intellectually lazy, because they are. I'm sorry. There's just no nice way to deal with that.
Yeah, well, Vosh is a bit of an idiot, so yeah.
I don't mean it as an insult. It's just a fact. So anyway, next one.
He calls himself a libertarian, but he's almost certainly a Nazi. Yes.
Oh boy, there it is. There's the false accusation of being an idiot. Vush's go-to argument when we can't properly refute something.
Once again, though, I would argue, once again, don't like Vosh, but I would say that's not really fair. Has come across in his career, and probably on the day that he reacted to your video, probably came across a few of them. So, it's not like when people say, you can't argue the point. So now you jump to that. It's like, no. So I hear a lot of those kind of people. So now, you become sort of hyper aware, hyper reactionary to that.
You know what? I'm just gonna treat this with the level of seriousness it deserves.
I'm just stressed.
You know what's that about you? Yeah, you think I'm a Nazi?
What?
That's interesting. You think everyone's a Nazi? That is true.
No. That would imply they think they're a Nazi themselves.
I'm not really concerned if a horse fucker thinks I'm a Nazi, though.
Wow, that's.
But seriously, let's reach a passage.
Are you not concerned? That's a bit of an odd one. That somebody who's morally above something that they've accused you of being, that you are not concerned if that person has accused you of that? Like, if you actually are that thing, they're still morally above you. And they clearly don't think everyone is, unless they are welcome you into a community. In which case, Yeah, maybe you should be concerned, because turning them down might not be the best idea. You know.
Like every right-wing content creator goes through this at some point, we should just call you an idiot. You all just go through this. It's a joke. It's
What?
Nazi law.
no, seriously, it's like a rich passage. Like every right-wing content creator goes through this at some point, we should just call you an idiot. You all just go through this. It's just
Every single every single right wing commentator, every single one of them, every single one of them will all call this. I feel like that's not true, just because maybe Vosh has seen every single right wing commentator, but I feel like no, because there are a lot of them.
it's a joke at this point. It deserves a seriousness.
And by the way, a good chunk of them just are. You know, they are, or they're bordering on it. So, there are two, by the way, reasons to call someone that. There's reason number one, which is just they just straight up are. People say, oh, you can't be Nazi because you're like you're not like German and you're not Aryan. It's like, well, no, you can technically still be a Nazi. You're still stupid. For example, if you're an American and you're a Nazi, yeah, they would have offed you too, buddy. You are very stupid. Of course, it doesn't make them not a Nazi, it just makes them a stupid one. But and then there's option two, which is like you're using Nazi as a term to sort of encompass a specific sort of. You're basically saying you're Nazi, ignoring the German Aryan stuff. So, for example, a lot of English people were effective Nazis. They weren't quite saying, because they're Nazis. If you remove the German stuff and replace it with English, then they're Nazis, But it's not. It's a kind of a hatch term. They're beyond fascism. They're so close to being a Nazi, but just that replace Germany with England, or replace Aryan with, I don't know, Anglo-Saxon. I don't know.
A joke. So let's move on.
Only 2/3 of each dollar budget then costs of their associates are those religions. I don't know what this is trying to demonstrate. Is this trying to like draw a cost comparison to a very small number of people who benefited the insurance practices back then, getting their ghost roof from the skull compared to today's modern comprehensive medical system, where we don't have like 1 in 3 women die in childbirth? I don't even know what point to make here.
Okay, what the heck is Vush talking about right here? The study is very clearly showing the point where the government is wasting 2/3 of the tax money they get on bureaucracy and other nonsense
Okay, so the argument will be solve the bureaucracy.
before subsidy recipients actually get the money, or either their corporate subsidy or welfare or whatever. I deliberately screenshot the part of the study that makes it as easy as possible to understand. And so
Okay, but that's not.
how Vush thinks that it has to do with cracking open someone's skull and removing the ghost from it. Sorry, I need the easiest.
Sorry.
Okay, what
Getting their ghost roof from the skull. It's trying to demonstrate.
deserves a seriousness of a joke. So let's move on.
Only 2/3 of each dollar budget then costs of their associates are those religions. I don't know what this is trying to demonstrate. Is this trying to like draw a cost comparison to a very small number of people who benefited the insurance practices back then, getting their ghost roof from the skull compared to today's modern comprehensive medical?
Clearly showing the point where the government is deliberately screenshot
It's still wrong, but technically you're also kind of wrong for your own argument.
the part of the study that makes it as easy as possible to understand. And somehow Vush thinks that it has to do with cracking open someone's skull and removing the ghost from it. Sorry, I need to pause this. Okay, I'm back. I'm done laughing. I'm Vush's. Seriously, though, this is the part of the study that is the easiest you could possibly understand.
It doesn't really work for your argument, though. It's just an argument for tackling bureaucracy, which is, by the way, fairly easy. Not fairly easy, but
It even has a little graphic that shows you 3 billion to government agency output 1 billion. Well, where are you getting ghosts from your soul from? Why do you think this has anything to do with
Also, don't you think that this 2 billion comes from people within the government who are business people who want to, make the most amount of money? As I said with the USSR scenario, where people were like in the USSR, oh, the government has a monopoly. Let's just enter the government and basically act like a business. There's a uprising of people who don't agree with the government. Just kill them. The same as you would if you were a company and people were going, we would like if you reduced your prices. And you go, well, no, because we make more money if we don't. So fuck off. And that's what happened under the USSR. People entered the government or like, let's treat this like a business, and just did. They just took the stuff. And, thus millions of people had problems. So this doesn't really work because you just in fact, it's an argument against this really, because then it's just like, well, the fault in the government is people who don't believe in the government, people who want to make money from the government, business people.
science from back in the day. How could Vush possibly look at this and not realize that we're talking about a completely different subject now? This is one of those academic papers that requires you to understand what effect size is, requires you to know how to do a calculus graph in order to fact check it. This is how as
But to be fair, Vosh was wrong.
simple as you could possibly get. The government wastes more money on bureaucracy than private companies do. It's really straightforward. I mean,
But no, though, they don't. That's just not true. That's just not true. That just is not true, objectively. They don't. They just don't. For proportion of what they make, they don't. If you're looking at a third, like the government spends $1 billion, you get $1 billion. Okay, you know how much how much executives get paid? Like Bill Gates, somebody who hasn't worked at Microsoft for is it over a decade now? Well over a decade? I'm not sure, but has billions. How? 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 There are so many executives that get paid money and they don't do anything. Now, does work get done? Yeah. But you know what happens? They hire more people to do the work. There is so much stuff. But the thing is, you don't realize that because businesses are designed to make profit. But the thing is, people within businesses do the exact same thing. But the thing is, businesses are also designed to not pay tax. So they're also inclined to reduce their profits officially. So, this is
this one I'm not sure if Vush is just pretending to not understand this because he knows it refutes his point. I don't know. Seriously, I can't tell here. I really, really hope that he's just doing this for optics. Because if not, then wow. So I'll just move on to the next one again. Being just like recommendation or that. Yes, in fact. Recommendation is only positive freedom. From
What?
Game for slavery. But of course, the problem is
Well, okay, did these slaves have positive freedom? No, then it wasn't a good demonstration of positive freedom. He seems to be under the impression that in advocacy for positive freedom means you only advocate for one single individual. Like, positive freedom enjoyers would love slavery because the slave owner has lots of positive freedom. Like, is there any other entities in the equation here that might not have a lot of positive freedom? But again, he's looking at Nazism.
yes, Vush. When you focus entirely on positive freedom, it creates contradictions. That's the point. I think this is something I'm going to over my foot.
No, but but you focus on positive freedoms for society as a whole, which is why your argument for socialism doesn't work, because who's going to do the sword job doesn't really work, because, like, yeah, but you're not letting that person do what they like. You have a society that functions still.
Twitter post. I should pause and check. Yeah, it is. What I wrote back there is pretty much goes over the problem. He's claiming that my comparison to slavery with positive freedom doesn't count because he wants that freedom for everybody. And that's just him admitting that freedom has to privilege the individual in order for it to be valid, which refutes his entire point. That is actually the basis for Hoppianism's argumentation ethics. And so for Vush to recognize that this is a problem, he is actually accidentally
No, it's saying your freedoms don't triumph over others,
agreeing with Hans Hermann Hoppe. If you agree that you cannot infringe
which is sort of the point.
on individual property rights in order to gain freedom, and then you are
No, you can infringe on individual rights. You just can't infringe on individual rights for the benefit of a single individual or a group of individuals that it hurts you. It's designed to bring people back to an equal point. So you can't go, oh, well, this person was nothing. We can take the bones inside their body and boom, we can do that because some people want the bones. No, because they're freedom. No, it's equalizing it. Who you take it from is who has more than their fair share.
agreeing with the basis of what those ethics are. He's admitting that the libertarian right take on ethics is correct, and he just doesn't even realize that
No, he's not. You are reading into what he's saying.
doing so. Probably because he doesn't really understand the argument from what I wrote on X. I'm not directly accusing everyone who wants to focus on positive liberty as wanting to own a slave plantation. I'm just accusing them of not understanding that's the logical conclusion of their beliefs. Anyway, next.
No, you don't understand what they're saying, though. If someone wants equality, they want equality. They're saying you don't get the right to keep your money if you have more than the average person. So let's equal things out.
So I'm only going to do a few more of these clips because at this point it's already pretty clear that Vush doesn't really understand my argument, has no intention of understanding it.
Have a good system.
If you think that you're entitled to somebody forced to do work every day for your livelihood, then yeah, that's pretty much the definition of slavery. We're really define what
It's not even remotely. It's called a job expectation. Like, you have to do your job. Like, you're not taxed no matter what. If you do a job, you have job expectations. They make this argument all the time about Medicare for all, where it's like, did you know it's actually slavery to expect a doctor to provide you medical practice? No, that's just their job. They can quit. They could not have that job. Like when I worked at a frozen yogurt shop, it wasn't slavery for a customer to come in and ask me to ring them up, even though it felt like it at the time. Okay, so let's push this to its logical conclusion. Let's say that you believe that healthcare is a human right, and you live in a communist utopia, and no one wants to be a doctor. How do you solve this? Yeah, see, if you believe that something is a human right, that ultimately means you believe it's more.
Why does no one want to be a doctor? Also, is it not slavery to force people to be a doctor, no matter what? Except, wait, no, it's not, because you're paying them. Okay? So it's okay to make someone feel miserable as long as you ensure that they... Okay, so what happens if you were to pay someone nothing, but you were to drug them to make them deliriously ecstatic? So this drug makes them insanely happy. It's also very dangerous, though, because it does dull their senses of pain. They can't really feel pain. So that's the problem. So when they're lugging that really, really, really heavy thing, it's going to break their shoulder. And you just go, well, there's loads of more people to do the job, so I'm taking off the drug now. You're fired. Okay. But up until that point, that person was happy. You didn't pay them anything, but they were happy. You know? Maybe the drug works beyond that, and they're able to function with their shoulder still broken. Okay, so they can still lift things. There we go. They can still do the job with the effect of them not feeling pain. It's still there. They can't feel the pain of the thing they broke, but it's still broken, of course. Is that okay? Morally? Is it? Is that what you're arguing for? Are you saying that as long as someone is happy, it's fine for you to do something to them? No, that's a very, very concerning argument, because it is also the intention of what you're intending to do. What you intend to do is also what's involved in this. Why exactly would you argue that point? That is concerning in the insane degree. For anybody who thought I was arguing on their side, I realize now that sounded like I was arguing for that. I'm not. To be clear, I'm saying that it is important what you do as well. It's not just what the effect is on the other person.
More than just a job. You believe it is entitlement. And this is actually why every communist regime eventually ends up having forced work camps. Because ultimately these jobs
I mean, where do you have communist regimes?
do have to get done, but the choice between rewarding people for doing them, which is what the free market does.
Well, actually, no. If you look at work camps were people who were going against the government completely. They weren't refusing to work necessarily. They were refusing to work in the same way, by the way, interestingly, as people who are looking for social democracy and people who are looking for socialism will have strikes. What they were doing was saying, we will not work. And then the state were like, well, no, you are. Yes, you are. That's actually not people saying, I don't want to do that job. It's saying, I don't want to do any job for you because I don't like your government, because you don't treat people very well, you know?
Or punishing people for not doing them. That's pretty much the logical conclusion of what Bush is saying here. It is slavery.
Yeah, but it's punishing them for not doing them, but it's not that they don't want to do that job. They don't want to do any job from a strike basis. They do technically want to do the job. They are willing, depending on the severity, they are willing to do a job. They're just not willing to do the job. First of all, maybe that job in specifically. But they're what they are disagreeing with is the government. And they're saying, well, this is the only power we have, which is strike action. And the government went, no, no, you don't. It is interesting that the nation that professes to be communist banned, collective action. But that's the key point. It's not really communist, you know?
He's refusing to push the reasoning that far. He's basically saying, no, I don't believe in y. I believe in y plus 1 minus 1. Oh, see, because I refuse to actually do my equation, that means I don't have to actually face the conclusion of that equation. Really?
Here is how you can generate all these ad creatives under 1 minute.
So many ads.
Brilliant. Anyway, moving on. Commander said on this earth we had nothing. We're in the middle of this and had absolutely nothing. And from that we built everything we had. From cavemen to feudal societies to more advanced civilizations.
I mean, we did have stuff though.
Like Bronze Age, the Iron Age, all eventually bring us to what we have today. But what if we didn't have that? What if we were behind?
I mean, no, we discovered stone.
Which is idea of positive liberty and like,
You know,
conclusion, but of course, not from the perspective of our modern technologically advanced society today. Oh no, instead, let's go back in time. What if humans had no negative liberty during our days? Say something.
Wait, does he think that having positive liberty means not having negative liberty? Hold on. Wait, I just realized. Does he think these are like a mutually exclusive dichotomy? Obviously, having positive freedom means, since positive freedom is about the ability to act on your desires, you couldn't have that if you had no negative freedom.
Okay, this is where Bush comes very, very close to understanding what I'm saying, but so very far. No, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I'm just pointing out that Bush is putting the cart before the horse.
No, but you kind of are though. You're saying that positive freedom is dependent on negative freedom, and then not really taking that a little bit farther and going, okay, but so what? You know, we can still have those positive freedom, you know, scale-wise.
Of course, because you need negative liberty in order to get you to positive liberty, because negative liberty creates the wealth and positive
Yeah, but you can have just a tiny amount of negative liberty and gain a good bit of positive liberty, you know?
liberty to basically enjoying the wealth. But instead, Bush is making the mistake of taking what I'm saying too literally. I don't mean absolutely zero negative freedom. I just mean close to it in comparison to what early humans actually
Okay.
had. It's like there's no attempt here to really understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's a zero-sum game. My point is that when you privilege negative freedom, you get both. So yeah, next one.
Okay.
And aliens here are all different governments. Okay, guys, we're going to permanently implement communism now for your own good. You're only allowed to eat very self-defense. You're only allowed to have animals.
Is that communism? Is that okay? Some kind of alien space communism?
Share all the equally, and you aren't allowed to do anything else without our approval. Okay, on the right side, in case humans ever had a bad day, like,
Wouldn't you aren't able to do anything else without our approval be an imposition on their positive liberty? Since positive liberty is about being able to act on your desires, and you're describing a system in which totalitarian alien rule prevents them from doing what they want, would that not be an imposition on their? This is what I mean, dude. It's so stupid. How do I even respond to this? Like it's so dumb. It doesn't mean anything.
couldn't find anything, couldn't get anything. The aliens helped them out, so it's their game, which might seem like a great deal to the people living back then. But looking back on today, this is obviously heavily. Assuming aliens must unworthy of sharing technology with us, and we're only acting as an aggressive force of permanent peace or communism, we would still be stuck at the same level of development today. All in exchange for more positive freedom, basically life.
No, it wouldn't be positive freedom. You literally stipulated that one of the rules is that they can't do anything else unless you have permission. That's not positive freedom.
Yeah.
How? That's not freedom at all.
And then
So I guess yeah, he genuinely thinks that positive freedom enjoyers are people who want like social security, but also totalitarianism or something. I guess he would be correct if he was arguing against Stalinists. I don't know.
Yes, Bush. Communism in practice is not really freedom at all. That's the point. My point is that
But you are okay, like I think I get this. You've swallowed the idea from the USSR that they were communist. Except they weren't, you know? It's like people who go, oh, look, socialism is really bad. Look at China. It's like, yeah, if China was a socialist country, yeah, socialism would be pretty fucking awful. Except the thing is, China's not socialist. China is not a socialist country, you know? Even if you think it was, it's not socialist now. So looking at it, it's like, well, no, you can't just go, oh, look, but it's in the name. Yeah, it's in the name does not mean it is that, you know. It's a bit of an odd one. I think that they may have swallowed the whole idea that the USSR was coming and then gone and then applied that to sort of right over and then understood what the USSR did and it was like, and then applied that as if that was communism, which it's not.
if we're focused too much on positive liberty, you end up with a society that doesn't have, which is exactly the problem with socialism. Exactly what you see in communist regimes. Right, and Bush, of course, is trying to distance
Once again, there hasn't really been successful communist regimes in recent history.
himself from Stalinism by admitting that my argument would make sense against the Stalinists. The problem is that Stalinism is the logical conclusion of some beliefs. You know,
No, it's not communism though.
seriously, the only difference between a tanky and a libertarian socialist is that a tanky is just honest. Or at least they're honest.
Not really. Like a Stalinist is objectively someone who isn't the greatest person. You know,
In what they believe.
if you honestly think that it is okay to ban collective action just because the government has control over the economy, well, okay. But why? If the government then is corrupted and people enter the government who don't really agree with the government action, but of course they're not going to remove it because if they remove it, then they're going to increase, then they're going to have competition. So they just go, well, let's have our monopoly through the government, which perfectly makes sense. If I was a business person and I was able to sneedle my way into the government, brand new monopoly for myself. Boom, problem solved. If I dismantle the government's control of the monopoly, I now potentially increase the factor that maybe I'll have competition. Of course, instead of happening on the USSR, they disbanded it and they just gave it to their friends, which created a monopoly where you had, now you have Russian resources that are owned by billionaires who just almost became billionaires overnight because before they were part of the government or they were friends of people in the government and then they owned it officially, you know?
Tankies are absolutely not honest when it comes to talking about data, but they're at least honest in terms of where their beliefs lead them. You understand?
Yeah, but the thing is, most people are not actually honest about being a tankie, as you say, you know? Because, the most popular so-called tankies on the internet are not going to admit the fact that they are that, you know? Because they don't like the word, because, yes, it describes somebody who is not really a socialist, not really a communist. It's this weird sort of business through the government style. The worker can be suppressed if they don't agree with the government. It's basic. It's kind of a bit of an odd one from a belief-centric point. But then, of course, you mix the sort of thing and you add, well, what are people who don't really believe that Stalin actually did certain things? Then that person is, technically speaking, they're a follower of Stalin, but they're actually a follower of, they're actually not a follower in a sense, you know? They're like someone who's a fan of a celebrity and go, they're really great, they give to charity. It's like, not that much. Like, you like the fact they give to charity, that's great, but like, that's not really true. Like, they do give to charity, but mostly they organize charity events. You know? Like, your idea of them is not reality. So, to be fair, some people are tankies. You go, well, sure, you might say, well, they have apologetics or they rewrite history, but their actual core ideology, is that the same as a Stalinist? Is a true Stalinist, a person who actually agrees with what Stalin actually believed, the same as somebody who's a tankie who wants to rewrite history, wants to say that this is what was actually going on? Because those are two different ideologies. The person who believes propaganda and the person who doesn't believe the propaganda but likes history, likes that point of history, and likes what Stalin actually did.
understand that, yes, you need to do these things in order to attempt to achieve socialism and move to communism. They will honestly tell you that, yes, they want the dictatorship of the proletariat. And will argue that anything.
Actually, very funny thing I find with most people who just do not understand the concept of what a dictatorship of the proletariat is. That's what we call democracy. That's literally democracy. If there is a dictatorship of the proletariat, that's just direct democracy. You know, the people are in charge. You know, that's just democracy. Do you not understand that? That's just direct democracy. If I'm a member of the proletariat, I'm not solely in charge. All the workers of the world are in charge, all in a big long row, or column, whatever you like to call it. That's fucking democracy, for God's sake. It is a weird one to me. I've seen even people who are political science graduates misunderstand this, and maybe I misunderstand the intention, as I discussed. Someone who's a tanky and someone who would be called a tanky, it would be different to somebody who agrees with Stalin. With Stalin, actually, those are two separate people, technically speaking. Maybe I'm wrong, but from my interpretation of the words dictatorship of the proletariat, that's the complete rule of the people, which to me just sounds like democracy. You know?
Is a dictatorship of some sort. They were justified that. This is actually why a lot of Yankees actually make Red Tutors like Bush a lot, and a lot of them actually don't like him. Because I suspect that someone like Hakeem, for example, would actually be able to get a better response than Bush gave. Or at least attempt to defend states on his and probably argue why it would eventually lead to better outcomes in some other way, which would be incorrect.
Yeah, but the thing is, once again, Hakeem, maybe not now, but at least was somebody who did not agree with Stalin, but agreed with the rose-tinted glasses version of Stalin, which is a bit of a different thing. Once again, I keep repeating myself. Apologies for that. But yeah, I don't like that.
Well, at least you could try to engage with it in a meaningful way, as opposed to what Bush is doing here, where he's just denying and misunderstanding the problem outright. This is why I say libertarian socialism isn't a thing. So they want to have their cake and eat it too, and they don't understand why that's a contradiction. When you point out that it is a contradiction, they think that you're contradicting yourself. They just completely misunderstand your argument. So anyway, next point. Well, I think we're going to end here at once. So focus on the possibility of no incentive for society to advance. They literally is typically allowed for that massive society advancement, allowing society to become what it is today. So now doing all these advances we have.
In societies with taxes, just no understanding, literally just complete head empty, like no.
Yeah, it is fair to say that because the likes of by the way, for a while, America was pretty damn close to the whole socialism thing. Like it wasn't like socialist, but you know, it was close enough. You know, there's a lot of unions, there's all these things. You know, and really, America is interesting in the sense that its political economic history has moved about a bit. You know, so you know, it's interesting there. If you, by the way, ignore the whole you know, slavery and you know, discrimination thing. If you ignore that, America, yeah, times was a pretty relatively good place for white people. You know, but yeah. But that's the thing there. But yeah, I mean, it is a key thing there, which is that because libertarians weren't necessarily, or at least weren't, you know, via their policies weren't directly enforced in the likes of many countries. So, well, would that spike continue under libertarianism?
No understanding whatsoever. Like, the human population and economic growth skyrocketed after the Industrial Revolution, at a time with taxes where governments existed and provided regulations around growth and development in cities that were nature sources of wealth. And then human development exploded yet again after the development of like the modern welfare state. Like,
oh wow, so we are concluding this with one of the worst instances of confusing correlation with causation I've ever seen. Yes, Vush, taxes did exist during the economic spike in the last 200 years, but taxes also existed in the previous 3,000 years. So why did this economic boom happen in the Middle Ages?
Well, actually, taxes went to kings, who didn't really spend a lot of it on the population. You know, they spent it on themselves, which is how the royal family of England has billions upon billions upon billions. A good chunk of which came from the slave trade.
Or why didn't it happen in year zero? Oh, that's right, because Western societies adopted free market policies. That's when the spike happened, because that's what creates wealth. The wealth you love so much.
No, actually, technically speaking, it's when government started collecting taxes instead of the rich. You had lords. This is actually fundamentally misunderstanding. You had lords. First of all, you had knights. You had your lords. This is a feudal system. It's a new, and then a version of that continued on in many countries, where via land ownership, where you pay money to your landlord, and then they pay it to the royalty. So this is not really true. Most taxes were collected to the royalty, not actually to the government necessarily. So
sure, your possibility. I mean, Bush could just easily correlate this with the existence of clothing as well, because that's been around about as long as taxes have been. Actually, no, this economic boom isn't called it is not caused by free market. It's caused by having stocks, man. Therefore, socialism good. And this is just the problem that happens when you
well, that would be having stocks is good. We need to have more stocks. Anyway.
Use to study economics from the perspective of logic. You have no ability to understand how incentives lead to causes and effects. Because again, you're rejecting the idea that man acts to achieve the desired goal. And by rejecting this, Bush has no ability to tell.
Well, no, you're not understanding that there's collective action. You know, we can work together.
Correlation actually has causation behind it or not. When talking about a subject that deals with human action, it's just completely unable to do any kind of qualitative analysis whatsoever. Anyway, time to move on. Well, it's different from having wealth and having an society that created that wealth. Getting society exists because of making freedom.
No.
So what Bush is very good. What he's really doing is saying that we should be allowed to enjoy the wealth without really understanding where that wealth comes from. It's kind of like when you look out into yourself for money out. Sure, that'd be awesome if you actually do that. And it'd be awesome if it worked.
Was this argument need to be supplemented by like some weird creepy anime doll? Again, I know these are like right libertarians, so they have a very specific set of taste and interest that have to be appealed to aesthetically. But like, what the, it's called a fumo? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, of course. He has to end the video with once again making fun of hobbies, which he has as well, as evidenced by what you can see in the background of his room. We're actually
once again, though, the whole gaming thing it does make you look like a fascist. Let's be honest. I will be fair to Fash. Like, yeah, you are giving off the vibe that you are a fascist. To be fair, you know. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying you give off the vibe.
You know what, I'll just conclude with this. Boosh didn't know what Cerno is, therefore he was wrong. Yep, there you go. Boosh is right, he doesn't know what Cerno is, therefore wrong. All arguments invalid, GG. Again, that's just kind of the problem with people who focus more on optics and rhetoric than truth, and it's the kind of silly arguments they'll come up with. It's these silly pot black things that have no relevance whatsoever to the subject at hand. And that's why I said it was pretty disappointing. He didn't really show that he understood what my argument really was. Lots of basic reasoning mistakes. The only thing I can really give him a plus on here is it is live form content. He is reacting towards it live. Didn't really have a chance to really go over the details. So a few mistakes are expected, and that's fine. But the thing is, if you're trying to be a political and philosophical influencer, it's still not an excuse. You might refute something in line number 1 that is then contradicted down the line in line number 10. It's just not a good content format for discerning proof. All of it can be entertaining content. In terms of ad revenue and stuff that you get from it, it definitely pays better than the kind of content I make. So if that's Boosh's goal, then congratulations. Yes,
I mean, it's more popular, so of course it pays better.
Make money engaging with the free market that he despises so much. Gotta respect the grift. So yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you're you're a libertarian. Yeah, I don't know how much money you make, but I mean, personally, I would say be wary if you're somebody who's like this, because if you look at the history of innovation, most innovation has been driven by governments funding things. Maybe sometimes it's funding them directly, other times it's funding them via corporations. They give corporations grants and all these things. You also have instances where corporations would do something, but governments would do it if corporations didn't exist. You know, so this is just sort of fact. You know, it makes sense. Scientists do not disappear just because corporations cease to exist. You know, if I'm studying for if I'm an engineer and I come up with a new concept, I don't delete the concept doesn't get deleted under a socialist society. That concept gets pitched and gets adapted and all these things. Now, potentially you could say that could lead to waste because a private company will only pick ideas that will be successful, whether they get government funding or not. They're picking ideas that will be financially successful. But you know, so you could argue that could lead to potential waste if the government is spending money on ideas that a corporation would ordinarily say wouldn't work. But you know, governments can do the exact same sort of thing where they can, you know, take a process and go, will this actually work and will this actually be better? And also the fact that, you know, governments can work together instead of corporations working against each other. You know, for example, Apple releasing a type of chip that they patent a technology and it improves their chip, and another company improving their chip by doing a different type of technology, and they're both an improvement. But if we were to combine the technologies, there'd be an even better improvement. You know, we go, you know, if we were to combine the technologies, it would be even better, wouldn't it? And if we were to, you know, do that, that would make sense. But we can't do that under a patent model. So you can remove patents then. There's all different ways around this. And I think one of the main arguments for, by the way, against libertarianism is that it is to an extreme against socialism. So the problem would be, well, if socialism wouldn't work, then why not a little bit beyond, a little bit closer to you? It's not quite socialism, but social democracy. So take some of the factors that you agree with. We will take some of them, and we'll take some of the factors and mix them together. You know, similar to the whole thing of positive freedom and negative freedom. You don't have, you're not like, you have to have this amount of negative freedom. You can have different levels. So kind of a misunderstanding of a couple of things. A couple of criticisms of us that are perfectly valid. All in all, yeah, not really great. I think, yeah, you have all issues there. Fundamental misunderstanding of what communism and socialism is, by the way, implying that states have existed that have tried communism, also implying states that existed that have tried libertarianism, and that's debatable, because some of them, you know, you know, there's all sorts of things there. Anyway, yeah, at the end of the day, it's there are a couple of things there. There's things like you know, a couple of discussed things there. There's videos I talked about that I've seen that you can watch. One of them was the whole Last Week Tonight video on healthcare, where healthcare is you don't have insurance companies, but you have forms there. There's a good video on that. Yeah, so I'll see you next time, hopefully. You're not going to just leave, are you? Well, to be honest, you probably didn't watch beyond this point, but anyway, bye-bye.